I'm Officer Dinah Kidd. I work for the Knox County Sheriff's Department. It was around 4:15 a.m. on the night of December 6th. It was real windy that night. We didn't have a lot of calls coming in. We felt like we were wrapping up our night because it was only a couple more hours till we'd get off.
8791.
And then we get the dispatch call that says there's a young man that had ran to the Weigels.
1080 with the victim just occurred at Weigels, 328 North Cedar Bluff. Time, stand by for update.
It's early morning in December when the clerk inside this convenience store gets a startling visitor. A young man who's bloody, pleading for help. He's barefoot and appears to have been seriously injured.
Knox County 911.
Yes, with the Weigels number at Cedar Bluff Road.
Mm-hmm.
There's a man that just walked in the store. He's heavily bloodied. Looks like he's been in a fight.
A gentleman had called in from the Weigels on Cedar Bluff and stated that he had been attacked.
When he ran up to the Weigels, he had blood all over his clothing as he entered into the gas station. He had a stab wound to his face. He had cuts on his hands. He was stabbed in the chest. So he did have obvious signs of trauma on his body.
Does he need an ambulance?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Okay, can I talk to him, please?
Sure, he wants to talk.
All right, what's your name?
Jason Amami.
Jason?
Amami.
Now what happened?
I just felt somebody stab me right in my chest.
Somebody stabbed you?
Hit me in my face. And that's the first thing I did was get up and run.
He'd heard some noise. He came outside. He came out into the hallway, and he had seen someone in the hallway, which then came to him and attacked him. He eventually got away from the attacker, and Jason had ran out the door.
He had on clothing that he was sleeping in, which was just a pair of shorts.
He had left so abruptly that he didn't even take time to get his glasses or his shoes before leaving the apartment. He just ran out as quickly as possible to flee and get help.
And while Jason Amami tells the clerk that he was able to get away, shockingly, he says he wasn't alone in that apartment.
His roommate's still in there. Apparently somebody broke into his house.
Is his roommate okay?
He doesn't know. Is he okay?
She was screaming very loud.
Now, where's your address at?
Redora Road,
Redora?
R-H-O-D-O-R-A.
R-H-O?
Park Apartment.
When the call came out, we then went to the apartment complex to check on the girl and kind of see what we could find there.
21-year-old Jonna Berry is barely clinging to life.
They found Jonna laying just inside an entranceway. She was face down and had multiple wounds to her body.
You were one of the first responders here.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you remember about Jonna Berry? What kind of shape was she in?
She was not in good shape. As soon as you opened the door, she was laying in the corridor at the bottom of the steps. Her apartment was at the top of the steps, and she was covered in blood. That it was her hair. She's got beautiful blonde hair, and it stuck with me because at the time I thought she might have red hair because there was so much blood.
Just kind of moaning, making a few sounds, but was unable to talk due to her injuries.
She did have a very large wound on her neck. She also had multiple stab wounds across her body.
Over 25 wounds to her body.
It was very obvious that Jonna had been in a fight for her life and that it was a very violent struggle.
For me, it was one of the worst crime scenes that I have been involved in since being in law enforcement.
When you go into her apartment, what is the scene like?
When we go up the steps and go into the apartment looking for the suspect or anybody else that's injured, the knife was in the floor, and it had blood on it, hair on it, and it was bent.
There were 6 units in the apartment building. There was blood on each of the doors within the 6 units. And we could tell from that Jonna was the person who went door to door trying to get assistance.
It's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's not the middle of the night, per se.
One individual thought someone was breaking into his apartment. We called 911.
Knox County 911.
Yeah, we hear a lot of noise outside my apartment. There was a lot of banging on the doors right downstairs. Now I hear some sort of yelling. I think I know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's someone out.
He looked out his peephole of his door.
Do you see anybody outside?
I look out the peephole here.
What's your name? Who's hung up on me?
He didn't see anyone.
It's because Jonna was crumpled on the ground below that peephole. Absolutely heartbreaking.
Unfortunately, the call dropped and there was no other activity.
Everything we have for Brandon Park Apartments.
Once the residence was cleared and we noticed there's no one else injured in the apartment, we go back down the stairs. I go back to her. So I leaned down and was talking to her, asking her if she knew who done this, if she knew where they went. I was just asking her all kinds of questions, try to help us find out who done this and what had happened. She would move around a little bit, but she couldn't answer me. So by this time, I just kind of held her hand and waited on EMS to arrive.
That night, two young people come face to face with an intruder. Jason manages to escape, but Jonna, who was too injured to speak, did not.
We were wondering what led to this horrific tragedy.
The attacker has vanished, the motive unknown.
Are our children safe? Are we safe? We had no idea who did this.
Police launch a full-scale manhunt across the Knoxville community. Inside that foyer, Jonna Berry is still alive, brutally wounded, and struggling to hold on.
I just held her hand and waited on EMS to arrive.
I remember distinctly that it was raining when I got to the scene.
Jonna dies in the ambulance, her fight ending before she ever reaches the hospital. What do you think that may have meant to her or to you to even just be there to comfort her?
I hope it helped her, and to me it would mean a lot if that was my child there.
It was 4 a.m. in the morning on December the 6th. We got a phone call from Knoxville UT Hospital. The gentleman on the other end of the phone, he asked to speak to Mike, which was very unusual because nobody called my cell phone and asked to speak with my husband.
She handed me the phone, and there was somebody on there said, "Are you Michael Berry?" And I said, "Yes." "Do you have a daughter, Jonna?" And I said, "Yes." Just to let you know, your daughter was murdered.
I heard him say, "Jonna's been murdered." And at one point, I was praying. It wasn't her.
They had made a mistake.
Yeah. My youngest son lived here, so I called him and I said, hysterically, "It's Jonna. Something's happened. You need to get to UT."
This had to be a nightmare for everybody.
It was. It rained all the way. It was like the angels was just crying.
It's just something that you never forget.
After nearly 4 hours on the road, Jonna's parents finally make it to the hospital.
When we got there, my youngest son was in the parking lot. He said, It's true, Mama, it's Jonna.
Did you have any idea what happened at that moment?
No. And the boys identified her body, which was very upsetting to me.
She was in bad shape.
Yes. I wish that I could spare them the heartache and the memory that they'll have forever.
Jonna, smile to the camera, girl.
Hey!
Jonna.
Jonna grew up in a tight-knit family in Bristol, Tennessee. Take me back. Tell me what kind of a little child she was.
Jonna was a very happy child. She was very ambitious. She did dance and cheerleading.
2 older brothers.
She had 2 older brothers. They were very protective of her.
You had a beauty salon, and I imagine she was running around.
Yes, she would get a manicure. I polished her little nails. She always wanted makeup on and her hair done. She was my best friend.
She was your best friend.
She was.
After high school, Jonna heads off to East Tennessee State University, where she gets a degree in child psychology. What was it that she aspired to? What were her aspirations?
She wanted to devote her life to children. She wanted to help them in any way she could.
As Jonna grows older, her dreams for her future grow bigger, and she meets her fiancé, Jason White.
Jonna got engaged when she was 20.
Kind of young.
It was young, but she knew what she wanted, and she worked hard to get it.
Jonna loves children, and that passion leads her to Knoxville, where she begins working toward a master's degree in child psychology. Most here consider this a safe slice of America, next to the Tennessee River. About 35 miles away, you'll find Dollywood, nestled in the Great Smoky Mountains. She's going to school, she's moving, about to get a new degree. That's a lot.
But she was so ambitious. She was constantly on the move.
How does she go about finding a place to live?
She was in the process of looking for an apartment, but we hadn't found the exact thing, so she stayed with a friend from college. She rented a bedroom.
That friend was Jonna's roommate, Jason Amamy.
I'd known Jason for a couple years prior, when she was in college.
He was somebody you were familiar with?
Yeah, we knew him, and he was a good friend. It was just a temporary thing.
Were you at all questioning or concerned about Jason Amamy?
Jason was stabbed also, but Jonna's brothers and her dad wondered why Jason didn't help her.
And police have their own questions. They sit down for the first of several interviews with Amamy.
He was able to explain to us that he woke up in the middle of the night because he heard a scream. Jason knew that Jonna did have nightmares, so at first he assumed that she could have just been having a nightmare. But as he got up, he noticed that there was a male figure backing out of Jonna's bedroom.
Jason was confronted by the assailant. He was stabbed about 6 to 8 times.
At that point, Jason didn't hear any more screams for Jonna. He wasn't sure if she had escaped the apartment or not. He just ran out as quickly as possible.
You have an initial reaction to any attack, and that's going to be fight, flight, freeze.
To unravel the mystery of Jonna Berry's murder, police zero in on a critical piece of evidence found at the scene.
When officers go inside the apartment, they see so much blood, it's everywhere. Then they see a bloody shoe print.
A single shoe print soaked in blood. Could this be the clue that unmasks the killer?
Jonna was funny, charismatic, intelligent. She just had this aura about her that just drew people in. Who would want to hurt somebody that was so pure?
Christmas was Jonna's favorite time of year, her family says. And just hours before the murder, she and her mom were on the phone talking about picking up gifts for the holidays.
I said, I did some Christmas shopping today, and she said, oh, I did too. We talked a little more and we said goodnight and I love you and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
The night she died, she had been wrapping Christmas gifts for children.
Jonna had them separated, you know, in little piles, they said, with the kids' names on them.
It just seems so tragic right before Christmas.
Fear gripped the city of Knoxville. A young woman savagely stabbed in her own home and her killer on the loose.
21-year-old Jonna Berry and her roommate were stabbed in their Brendan Park apartment.
It really left the community feeling unsettled.
I'm a news anchor here at WATE in Knoxville, and I have covered the Jonna Berry case since the very beginning. This seemed to be a crime out of nowhere. There were so many questions, and people were wondering what on earth is going on.
To this day, Jonna's mom, Joan, can't shake the image. Her daughter bleeding, terrified, pounding on doors, and nobody answering. When you heard that she frantically ran asking for help and nobody answered their doors, what did you make of that?
It angered me at first. You know, I can understand someone not opening the door at 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, I can understand that. People don't want to get involved. Why couldn't you be more like Jonna and want to help people? She would have helped anybody.
Some of the folks in the apartment complex possibly could not have heard the knock on the door due to it being in the middle of the night and the bedroom being located so far away from the front door. Some people, we learned, were not at home.
Detectives begin a full-scale investigation, and there's one thing that is impossible to ignore: the sheer amount of blood in Jonna's apartment. How bloody was this crime scene?
There was blood in not only in Jonna's bedroom, Jason's bedroom, blood in the living room, blood on the back door, blood out the back of the apartment going down the stairs.
Blood is on the doorknob, blood is on the floor, blood is on the door.
Looked like there had been some type of fight in Jonna's bedroom.
This had been a struggle.
Yes, you could tell that there was a struggle in there. You could tell that she fought hard.
Numerous samples of blood were taken from the crime scene. The blood sample was sent to the TBI for analysis. This is the exit that the perpetrator took the night of the crime. We can see that this door is ajar. There's no evidence of a forcible break-in.
Detectives wanted to find out was how the person got into the apartment without no forced entry being there. Was the door left unlocked? Did they have a key? Were they let in?
There was some speculation that Jonna had been on the phone with her fiancé, and perhaps the excitement of wrapping the gifts and just having these other distractions that she forgot to lock the door.
Could it have been a friend of theirs that was in the apartment? Was it somebody that had gotten upset with Jason or Jonna? So there's a lot of different theories that were being thought about of what could have happened.
Investigators also discover curious items in the apartment, like a hat and a CD case they believe belonged to the killer.
The Atlanta Braves hat, the CD case, all of those things were leading us to believe that someone else possibly had entered the apartment since these things did not belong to either one of the occupants of the apartment.
The murder weapon was discovered in the hallway directly outside of Jonna's bedroom.
The knife was in the floor and it had blood on it, hair on it, and it was bent.
The hair that was found on the knife appeared to be from Jonna.
We knew right away that the knife came from inside the home. It was part of a matching set that was from the kitchen. What stood out to me the most about the weapon is how damaged it was. The handle was broken, the blade was bent. I could only assume that it had hit bone, that it was used multiple times, that it was very violent just given the force to break the handle.
While the murder weapon reveals a violent struggle, there's a single piece of evidence left on the blade which might point to the hand that held it.
There was a partial fingerprint that was found on the knife. There was an unknown DNA that was found on the knife.
Now that's got to be important because now that's going to be something that's going to lead you to somebody.
Oh yes, very, very important. If we can match a fingerprint or a partial fingerprint to someone, that would help. Our guys photographed it, sent that off to the lab to see if they would be able to get the fingerprint off of there and see if it was in any kind of system or database that they had.
But police aren't finished yet. In Jason's room, they discover a piece of cardboard, and on it, a damning piece of evidence.
There was a very pronounced shoe print. And what stood out about the shoe print the most is that it was in blood.
Detectives also take note of the shocking number of times that Jonna was stabbed.
Jonna's autopsy revealed that
As far as the hospital goes, that was sort of a dead end. It never produced any kind of information either.
Jonna had no enemies. You know, nobody ever expressed being angry with her, or she never had any trouble with anybody. We had no earthly idea of who could have done this.
We really focused mostly on her closest circle. The first people that we wanted to clear from Jonna's murder were Jason, the roommate, and Jason, her fiance at the time.
The violent nature of the attack, the numerosity of the wounds, all hinted towards some sort of personal relationship that she may have had with somebody.
Joan Berry says her daughter met Jason White at a party when they were both students at East Tennessee State University, and the romance moved quickly.
We're very fond of Jason. She got engaged at Christmas, and she couldn't wait to show me her ring.
She wanted more than anything to be his wife and be a mom and raise a child with him and have them grow old together. She was so excited to marry him.
After graduation, Jason moves to Michigan to get his law degree, while Jonna moves to Knoxville to continue her studies.
He was in Michigan, and every night she would go to sleep with them talking. And then when she would go to sleep is when he would hang up.
In speaking with Jason White, he had explained to us that he talked to Jonna that night.
Detectives learned through his cell phone records that his cell phone appeared to be in Michigan the entire time.
No, there was no suspicions in my mind. I had never crossed my mind that Jason White ever did that.
Very quickly within the investigation, Jason White was cleared as a suspect.
Police are also interested in talking to the other Jason in Jonna's life, her roommate, Jason Amami.
So, how are you doing?
I am doing good.
Police interview Jason the day after he gets out of the hospital, where he was treated for wounds to his chest, face, and hands.
Once Jonna's fiance was ruled out, all eyes went to her roommate. And one of the first questions investigators asked him was, do you have a romantic interest in Jonna?
As far as your relationship with Jonna, how long have you known her?
I've known her for probably at least over 5 years.
Okay. Did you guys ever date?
No.
Never?
No. I was living in Knoxville and she needed a place to stay, so I said I'd be happy to let you live with me. That wouldn't be a problem.
She's got her fiance.
Right.
This is another guy. What did you make of the arrangement for her to move in with a guy as a roommate?
I was fine with that. I'd known Jason for a couple of years. He was a boyfriend of one of her good friends too, so. And even her fiance, Jason White, he didn't have a problem with it.
He tells Detective Delgado that on the night of the attack, he was watching TV when Jonna decides to go to bed.
She probably went to sleep about 10:30. I probably went to sleep 12:30 around there.
What do you remember after that?
I just remember waking up, hearing screams. I looked at my alarm clock. I believe I remember seeing a 4, so probably 4 a.m. sometime.
Jason says it's not the first time he's been awakened by Jonna screaming at night.
She sleeps very light. She told me when she first moved in, she said, if I wake up and I'm scared or something, just come in and check on me, make sure I'm okay.
At first he assumed that she could have just been having a nightmare, but as he got up and he was leaving his room to enter her bedroom, he noticed that there was a male figure.
Next thing I remember is I'm on my bed and he's on top of me. I just remember fighting with him. He punched me in my face. I kept telling him, I was like, what do you want? He just kept telling me, shut up, shut up. And then I felt a sharp pain right here, and that's when I knew he had a knife.
He grabbed the knife to try to get it away from the individual, He kicked the individual in the groin area. The individual went back against the bedroom wall. He saw an opening that he would be able to get out of the bedroom.
At that point, he didn't hear any more screams for Jonna. He wasn't sure if she had escaped the apartment or not. But at that point, he just ran out of the apartment as quickly as possible.
You ran out of the apartment. Did you take anything with you?
I didn't even think about it.
What were you wearing?
I was wearing blue workout shorts, which I wore to the gym, and a pair of boxers.
Okay.
And that's all I was wearing. I just ran straight out the door and right across the street. And I was banging on some of the doors at the other complex.
Investigators zero in on an important point in Jason's story. He came face to face with his attacker, Jonna's killer.
Now, let's just go through what this guy looks like.
He's got short hair, kind of like mine. It's like a brownish blonde color.
He felt confident that he would be able to identify the person, provide a sketch of what this individual looked like.
This is Tom. Tom, this is Jason.
Hey, how's it going?
Tom's going to help you with the composite.
Using Jason's detailed description of that attacker, police are able to generate a photorealistic computer composite of their suspect. So he's able to give you some details about what this intruder looked like.
Yes, because he was face to face with that person. So he's really the only living survivor that can give us a description of the individual.
Despite Jason's cooperation, investigators say they still have lingering questions about Jonna's roommate.
There was no forced entry, and I think that led investigators to probably focus a little bit more on Jason Amami.
Also, we had to look at the murder weapon came from within the apartment, within their own knife set. So, Jason had access to that. Could he have gotten the knife and used it to commit this crime? Could he have cut his own finger? It'd be pretty hard to stab yourself in the face close to your eye, but we couldn't rule that out.
Is Jason a victim or a suspect? Investigators take him back to the scene of the crime. Will his story hold up?
He just kept stabbing and stabbing. That's at the point to where I noticed he finally had a knife.
The walkthrough was really important for us. Look for inconsistencies regarding what he was telling us about the scene, what happened that night.
We had no choice.
But there's an unexpected guest at the funeral. Just 48 hours after he was released from the hospital, Jonna's roommate, Jason Amami, attends the funeral. And so do detectives.
There was a lot of chatter about the fact that Jason had run from the scene and leaving Jonna there, essentially to die.
People thought he had to have some kind of role in this because of his actions or inaction.
Did it trouble you that he ran away from the scene to get help instead of trying somehow to help her?
It did for a while, but now after you have time to process things and really think about it, I thought he was just trying to get out too, because he was attacked.
Detectives want an exact picture of what happened inside Jonna and Jason's apartment. With his detailed play-by-play, Jason takes them as close as possible to being in that room when the attack happened.
Date is December 9th, 2004. Time is 15:59.
We had him look around to see if anything was missing, if anything had been stolen or disrupted.
There was an Atlanta Braves baseball cap that was found in Jonna's bed. That was not there before, was not owned by Jonna, was not owned by Jason Amami.
The partial shoe print on the cardboard, the Atlanta Braves hat, those things were leading us to believe that someone else possibly had entered the apartment.
In the sheriff's office video of the walkthrough, you can see that Jason's wounds from the attack are still fresh and visible. Still, he's able to calmly describe the evening's events in great detail.
I came home from the gym and the door was locked. Jonna was sitting right here.
The walkthrough was really important for us to watch his body language, listen to him, look for inconsistencies regarding what he was telling us about the scene, what happened that night.
He tells police the same story he did in his interview the day of the murder. Jonna went to sleep first, he went to bed around 12:30, and then was awakened around 4 a.m.
I heard a scream I didn't say a word. My door was totally closed to my room. I woke up just from my sleep here, and I remember walking this way.
He says he opened his bedroom door, which was closed. He was confronted by someone.
And he is right there. And I'm still looking down, and I remember doing this and having him face me and grab me like this. And then he pushed me back this way, and I fell on the bed like this.
At first he was confused. He wasn't sure if he was being punched or being stabbed.
He just kept stabbing and stabbing. And that's at the point to where I noticed he finally had a knife. I remember trying to defend myself like this with my hands, and that's where I got the cuts on my hands.
And Jason described pushing them back towards the wall of the bedroom. That information was corroborated by blood smear on the drywall.
Jason says he no longer heard Jonna screaming and didn't know if she had escaped the apartment or not.
I took off and I ran as fast as I could this way.
He said that when he left the apartment, he had to unlock the front door to get out.
And as I ran through here and got the door open, I just ran. I didn't even stop in here. I ran down through here and down these stairs.
So Jonna's roommate goes running from this apartment complex. What route did he take?
Jonna's apartment is located over this way, so he ran out of the apartment complex. He saw a figure off in the distance. He thought it was the person that was still chasing him or looking for him.
Came this way and looked closer at it. And I saw a figure come from behind this little cabana here and kneel down in between one of these bushes here on the other side of the pool. And it was kind of like somebody going like this. Walking like this.
After knocking on doors at a neighboring apartment complex but not getting any help, Jason takes off down the road.
I think the biggest information that we got from the walkthrough was he felt like he was being pursued, and you kind of started to understand how and why he made it all the way to the 24-hour convenience store before he could summon help.
I bolted down to the street. And I got behind the car and started yelling at the doors. They didn't even stop. So I remember going just right next to these bushes here. I remember scaling right about this point right here. And then when I got to the door here, I looked inside, noticed the clerk. I got to here, told him to get help.
After that minute-by-minute account that was consistent with his earlier statements, detectives are now less convinced that Jason could be the killer. But is he telling the full truth?
When Jason was confronted by the polygrapher, he became very upset.
Turn your chair around, let's talk. Yeah. Your scores were substantial, say. Where am I wrong then? I have told you the 100% truth.
And new physical evidence leads to more questions than answers.
There was Jonna's DNA, Jason Amamy's DNA, and there was an unknown DNA that was collected.
They realize there's a third party that was in that room.
And a twist so wild, not even seasoned investigators could see it coming.
I felt very confident. This has to be our guy.
Why would anybody want to cop to a crime they didn't commit?
Families still looking to track down a murderer tonight, nearly 3 years after their daughter in a UT co-ed is killed in her apartment.
What is that like for you as a family to have your daughter murdered and no one arrested for it?
That was the only thing on my mind from morning to night. That's all I could think about.
When it comes to this mother wanting to find answers, she would stop at nothing.
We need to know who did this to Jonna. We need answers.
We would follow up with the tips that we would get.
Ruling out suspects.
All I'm trying to discover is the truth. And I'll give my point, Jason, that you haven't told it to me. I have told you the 100% truth.
And seeing what's left.
There was an unknown DNA that was collected from several locations inside and outside of the apartment.
Now that's got to be important because now that's going to be something that's going to lead you to somebody. You get the case of Jonna Berry and you're running samples. Give me an idea of how that works.
There's no other person, literally no other person in the world, but you that could have left that sample.
You know what happened to this girl?
Here in Knoxville, we don't have a murder every day. When something like this happened to Jonna Berry, it kind of shook up the neighborhood.
Brendan Park Apartments calls itself a peaceful retreat here in West Knoxville. But one early December morning, that peace was shattered. 21-year-old Jonna Berry had been brutally stabbed in her own apartment.
In a million years, I would never have thought that this would have happened to my daughter.
21-year-old Jonna Berry and her roommate were stabbed in their Brendan Park apartment on December 6th. The roommate who survived was able to call police, but Jonna didn't make it, and her killer is still on the loose.
Based on the description that Jason gave us, we had a composite sketch made.
This is who sheriff's investigators are trying to identify. He's in his 20s, about 5 feet 8 inches tall, 150 pounds.
The thing about the composite, it has some really distinguishing features. Kind of almond-shaped eyes, widow's peak, kind of a blunted nose, but a white male.
If you think you have information that could help the case, you're asked to call the sheriff's office.
Leads were coming in, but leading nowhere. Meanwhile, Jonna's mom turns her grief into frustration. The weeks go by, no arrest. What is that like for you as a family to have your daughter murdered and no one arrested for it?
We called every day. We would call the detectives.
There was that feeling that detectives and the sheriff's office weren't doing enough, when in reality, they were working this every day. There just weren't any answers.
Jonna Berry's family is still upset over a lack of closure.
I can tell you that the 2 detectives assigned to the case were running nonstop, chasing down leads, going through tip lines. All of those things were happening, but the end result wasn't there.
It was very hard for me not to have an answer for Jonna's parents, and speaking with them on a daily basis, letting them know there's nothing new, there's no more leads.
I became so worried that it would become a cold case and we would never get answers. I kept it in the media. I did everything that I could.
You turned your grief into action.
I did. I did.
Yesterday, they were at the track in Bristol. Today, a church in downtown Knoxville.
She called me every time she was doing something different. Hey, we're going to put flyers at the cleaners. Can you come?
Joan used her own money to put billboards all over town, including a heavily traveled stretch of I-40.
We had several billboards with Jonna's pictures, with the picture of the composite on them, and $70,000 reward.
A local grocery store chain had information about seeking help to solve the unsolved murder on their delivery trucks.
We handed out flyers. Family and volunteers put flyers on cars in the neighborhoods around through there.
I don't think I could ever be as strong as Joan. She wouldn't stop. She digs in and she just goes.
That was the only thing on my mind every day, from morning to night. That's all I could think about was who would kill Jonna.
While the investigation has made little progress in naming a suspect, things are moving ahead on the forensics front.
Inside Jonna's apartment, there was a very pronounced shoe print in blood.
We ended up sending off the cardboard that the tread pattern was on, and we got information back from that this tread appeared to be this type shoe, Faded Glory. Most have sold at Walmart.
The shoe print ID is the most promising evidence so far, leading detectives to their strongest suspect.
We got a tip a few streets over from the apartment complex that an individual had been involved in some crimes, some thefts, and that led us to an individual named Michael Percival. He lived in a trailer park, probably within a few miles of the apartment complex. When we went into the trailer to talk to him, the carpet cleaner was sitting there next to the living room.
A carpet cleaner isn't necessarily suspicious in and of itself, but what if somebody was using it to clean up blood tracked in on the bottom of their shoe? Detectives ask Percival if they can look at his shoes.
Detective Delgado retrieved the shoes for Michael Percival, and she noticed the tread on those being similar to the tread that were found in the apartment in Jason Amamy's room. She kind of elbowed me and showed me the tread, and we were both kind of like, holy cow, these could really be, you know, the shoes.
I saw Captain Hall, and he said, we've got him. He still had the shoes, Kevin, he still had the shoes. Everything looked like it was lining up for us. Michael Percival was the individual responsible for Jana's death.
But does the shoe fit?
We can't believe what he's saying. You know, it doesn't make any sense.
And there are more questions for Jason Amamy as his patience wears thin.
100%. I have anything to do with this. Calm down. I'm getting out of here. I ain't getting out of here. Calm down. I feel like a suspect.
Detectives Hall and Delgado have just gotten a big lead in Jana Berry's murder case. They're led to a 19-year-old named Michael Percival. His shoes appear to match that bloody shoe print left behind at the crime scene.
I felt very confident. This has to be our guy.
Both of us were kind of big-eyed.
It was just like, we've got it solved. We couldn't believe that he kept the shoes.
Investigators bring Percival in for an interview. And in a shocking admission, the teenager says he witnessed the murder.
When Michael first admitted to being at Jana's house, he explained that this was part of a drug deal gone wrong.
He said that he went there with a drug dealer to collect money from Jana and Jason for drugs that they had purchased. He said that he entered the apartment and this individual that he came with was stabbing Jana and Jason inside the apartment.
But as detectives keep questioning him, they say his story just isn't adding up.
There was nothing to indicate at all that Jason or Jana were involved in drugs, so it was very inconsistent with what we knew about the victims.
Jana was never involved in drugs. She was very straight-laced.
Investigators take a closer look at Percival's shoes that they believe might have been at the crime scene.
We sent those off for analysis, and the analysis came back.
It was not an exact match.
Those were not the shoes. This was another dead end.
Michael Percival was ultimately cleared.
Why would anybody want to cop to a crime they didn't commit?
We learned through the investigation that Michael Percival liked attention.
Now, back at square one, investigators are re-examining the case.
There's this one person detectives keep coming back to, and it's Jana's roommate, Jason Amamy.
While evidence such as the CDs, a baseball cap, and that bloody shoe print suggest a third person might have been in the apartment, detectives still have questions for Jason.
We wanted to 100% make sure that Jason wasn't involved in this in any way. Even if there was another person involved, that he didn't let them in.
So police ask him to take a polygraph test. He agrees, and the test is videotaped.
Are you ready to take the test? Sure. All right. If you would,
Or need to take off my sweatshirt?
Yeah, if you would.
One of the main reasons that we asked Jason to take a polygraph is just simply to see like how cooperative he would be with it.
Do you know for sure who caused the death of Jonna Berry?
No.
Did you have prior knowledge that the person who stabbed Johnny would be at your apartment that night?
No.
But then things take a sudden turn in the interview room when the polygrapher begins to interrogate Jason.
Jason, I want you to listen to me.
Yeah.
You know, I think you're a smart boy, but you did horribly on that test.
Did I really?
You really did. Turn your chair around. Let's talk.
Yeah.
Why do you think you failed the test?
I don't know. I was 100% truthful.
The polygrapher basically started interviewing Jason Amemy and accusing him of being the killer.
But I've been doing this for a long time, and there's something that you have not told me. Did you stab that girl?
No. I did not stab her at all.
Did you get just angry, perhaps, over something that she said or something that happened there?
Never.
And you just lashed out?
Never.
All I'm trying to determine is the truth.
And I'm
getting my point, Jason, that you haven't told it to me.
Where am I lying then? I have told you the 100% truth.
It was the first time we really saw Jason react emotionally in the sense you could tell he was very angered and offended by the question.
Are you saying I did it?
I'm saying it certainly looks like it.
It was confrontational. The polygrapher was not just asking questions, but was essentially involved in a heated interrogation.
100%. I don't have anything to do with this. I don't care what that box says. I voluntarily took this. If I had something to hide, why would I take this test? Why would I do DNA? Why would I do this?
Calm down.
I'm getting mad here. I ain't getting up to do this.
Calm down.
I feel like a suspect now.
Calm down.
He's very, very upset. It took a little bit to get him calmed down.
Police are reviewing Jason's test results when they discover there's an error.
The polygrapher said that he failed the test. When we had two other polygraphers look at the results, they basically said that he passed the test.
Besides passing the polygraph, detectives also aren't able to link that bloody shoe print or partial fingerprint on the knife to Jason, so he's ultimately cleared.
Jason was originally from Colorado, and shortly after, he relocated back to Colorado.
Michael and I traveled to Colorado and visited with him. He answered our questions and had time for us, and I'm sure this has affected Jason's life too.
Jason has not only suffered the trauma of the attack, but he's also facing public scrutiny and innuendo.
Jason was a good kid who got caught up in this and the circumstances of it and made a decision of flight that was involuntary and took a lot of heat and a lot of flack for that, and has.
Weeks after the murder, a new bombshell development when lab results come back from blood at the crime scene.
There was Jonna's DNA, Jason Amemy's DNA, and there was an unknown DNA inside and outside of the apartment.
Could this DNA belong to the killer? Detectives are racing to find out.
That was the key to getting the person that did this.
Wow, they're going to be able to find who murdered her.
I see memories of Jonna everywhere in the house, right?
Yes. These are Jonna's little baby shoes.
They rest here?
That's where they stay here all the time, yeah.
Even though years have gone by since their daughter's murder,
this is my pride and joy. I love this.
in nearly every corner of every room, mementos of Jonna.
This is Jonna's room. We call it Jonna's room.
Jonna's room.
Still. And I still have her wedding gown.
You still
have her wedding gown.
All these years
after
later.
20 years.
This is it. That's beautiful.
This is the dress, her wedding gown.
All the beading. Oh, look at the train. Oh.
She looked beautiful in it, yes. 20 years old. She had picked out a wedding band for Jason, and we bought it. So Jonah's dad wears the wedding band. He wears it every day.
Well, still got it. She worked so hard and did so many things. That was a small gesture.
I'm glad that she got to experience being engaged and planning a wedding.
Weeks after Jonah's murder, investigators still don't have a suspect. But then a break in the case. DNA results have just come in.
There were 3 DNA samples found at the scene: Jonah's, Jason, and an unknown male perpetrator.
The unknown sample, it was found in Jonah's bedroom. It was also found in the living room, and it was found on the back door and outside on the back deck. And we know that they exited out the rear of the apartment because the unknown DNA is not only on the back door, but it leads down the back stairwell. We found no unknown DNA on the front door or leading out the front door.
Detectives also make a key discovery on the murder weapon.
There was an unknown DNA that was found on the knife.
The race is now on to find out who the DNA belongs to.
We thought they're going to be able to find who murdered her.
But after running that unknown DNA through a law enforcement database, investigators get some disappointing news.
The DNA comes back to us. There's no one in the system that comes back to.
They don't know who it belongs to.
It seemed unusual to us that a person would commit a crime with such violence if they didn't have some sort of other violent history.
They ran the DNA and no match.
No match.
While meeting with investigators, Joan learned something else that shocks her.
Tennessee doesn't take DNA if you're arrested for a violent crime, only if you're convicted. I was absolutely shocked, and I even said, wow, well, that needs to be changed.
And that's exactly what Joan does. For more than 2 years, hoping it might lead to her daughter's killer, she pushes for a new DNA law.
I would go to the Capitol and introduce myself and ask them if they would support the DNA law.
We're talking about any violent crime such as murder, rape, even robbery. Those people arrested would have to submit their DNA.
Joan is a fighter, and she rose up like a phoenix.
Jonna Berry was her name, and her parents, Joan is sitting in the back of the chamber here with me today, have been on a crusade.
Well, a victory today for family and friends of murdered UT student Jonna Berry.
I think this is a very important bill for every citizen in the state of Tennessee.
You pushed and pushed, and you got this law passed in Tennessee. You changed the law.
Yes, we did.
Jonah's law.
It is. It's called the Jonna Berry Act.
But ironically, even after changing the law, Joan discovers there's still no match with that unknown DNA in her daughter's case. How did you find the strength to keep pushing?
And this was the most important thing in the world to me, to find out who murdered Jonah.
When it comes to this mother wanting to find answers, she would stop at nothing.
To keep her daughter Jonna's name out in the public, Joan goes on national talk shows.
Joan, what has it been like all these years?
There's no words to explain what we've gone through.
She even goes on the Montel Williams show seeking a psychic's help.
Really need to know, we need to know who did this to Jonna. We need answers.
Heartbroken warrior. That's who Joan is.
That was my prayer always, to have an answer. And I believed in my heart that God would answer my prayers.
Even if it took a while?
Mm-hmm. And one day he said, "What are you worried about? It's gonna be okay."
As the investigation into Jonna's murder went on, it really expanded. Thousands of tips came in.
We would follow up with the tips that we would get. Every person that we came in contact with, we asked them to voluntarily commit to a DNA sample.
We looked into any person that we possibly could, but it was just dead end after dead end.
Then, about 2.5 years after Jonna Berry's death,
So in this lab, we actually have dual purpose.
a forensic scientist makes a key discovery.
I said, oh, wow, this might be something.
Our chief of detectives called and said that we all needed to get together. He needed to talk to us.
And he's like, get here as soon as you can.
A family still looking to track down a murderer tonight, nearly 3 years after their daughter in a UT co-ed is killed in her apartment.
The main thing that you're going on is DNA evidence.
Yes, we had the unknown DNA. It was really our only connection to the person that was connected to this crime.
We thought, will we ever have this case solved? Then the case makes a turn. Someone called in a tip after looking at the composite sketch, and they said, that looks like someone I know. And that someone is Taylor Olson.
Looks very similar.
Yes.
Taylor Lee Olson is 22 years old. He lived about 15 minutes from the crime scene, and he was known to have committed some petty crimes, also harassment, theft.
He also had an outstanding warrant for his arrest out of another jurisdiction. We arrested him, asked him about the crime.
Does he present in any way at all to you that he might have a connection to this?
He said that he didn't know anything about the crime. He voluntarily gave us his DNA.
Given that Taylor Olson only had smaller petty crimes, he didn't really fit the profile of who we were looking for.
We just thought, hey, you know, this is just another person that looks like the composite sketch.
Olson's DNA is then sent to a lab to compare it to the unknown DNA found at the crime scene.
It comes back, it is a match to the blood of that unknown person found at the crime scene.
So in this lab, we actually have dual
Jennifer
purpose.
Millsaps, the forensic scientist at the lab, made the match.
I looked at it a couple times. I wasn't too sure. Wanted to make sure that it actually was a match and I hadn't confused something. So we actually ran it twice to verify it.
That must have been a big moment.
Oh yeah, it was huge.
Amazing. Probably one of the happiest moments of my life.
We were all very excited, high-fiving each other, celebrating.
Gave Brad a big hug or something because we couldn't believe it finally happened.
You get a phone call. There's a match.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing, so I said, I want to put you on the speakerphone because I wanted Mike to hear too, because I didn't trust what I was hearing. It was the blessing that God had answered my prayer.
So when we come back to town, we learn that Taylor Olson has a couple more outstanding warrants for his arrest, a burglary and a theft.
At that time, detectives don't have a warrant to arrest him for murder.
So we go into mode of looking for him and trying to locate him on those arrest warrants.
He was found, ironically, in the mall where Jonna worked, in the parking lot of the mall.
He was inside the trunk of a car. He was trying to hide from the officers. So we took him into custody.
You had your suspect.
We had a suspect. We wanted to give him an opportunity to explain why his DNA or his blood was found there in the crime scene.
What's up, Taylor? How you doing, man? Good.
It was very important to us that he didn't have any upfront knowledge that we were going to talk to him about Jonna or the DNA.
Do you know why you're here?
Pretty much.
What for?
Guys accused me of breaking into his house and stealing a bunch of steal.
Had you ever heard about the Jonna Berry homicide case before?
Mm-hmm.
So you'd never seen Jonna Berry before?
Like, in person?
Yeah.
No, I never met her.
Detectives decide to confront Olson with the DNA evidence.
After I sent your sample off to the TBI lab, they got us a report back. It's a match for your DNA being in Jonna Berry's apartment.
Is this a joke?
No.
Like, I really don't know anything like it.
Trust me, it's not a joke. Is there any reason that you can explain your blood being in Jonna Berry's apartment?
My blood was in Jonna Berry's apartment.
Right.
You're serious?
Yeah.
He was very adamant that he was not there. He denied any involvement.
You think killed someone?
I'm just talking about the evidence, is what I'm talking about.
I've never killed anyone.
We knew he was there, of course, because of the blood, his DNA being there.
So we're here to give you an opportunity.
Okay.
To, tell us what happened, why you were there, and why your blood was there.
I have never been there. I ain't no killer. I haven't killed no one. I've never killed anybody. Never.
There was no doubt in my mind at that point that this was the person that we'd been looking for. We have your blood there.
So I'm pretty much huh?
We're giving you the opportunity to explain.
I don't have an explanation.
What happened?
Finally, we were just like, hey, he's just going to keep going and going with his story, and nothing's ever going to change.
It almost seemed like he thought that he was going to get away with it.
Olson is questioned 3 days in a row. And on the final day, investigators are about to make a breakthrough.
I've been sitting out here in the hallway listening to this that you're talking about, and I'm just about sick of it. Why did you do this to this girl?
And finally he said, okay, I was there.
I can't believe this happened.
You got the knife away from that person, went kind of crazy.
Have a seat in that chair. You want both free?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is your opportunity to tell, because this is your last chance. Your last chance to get your voice out there. You tell your side of it. We already know her side.
On his third day of taped interrogation, Taylor Olson continues to deny any knowledge of Jonna Berry's murder.
Why don't you tell me what happened when you were inside?
I don't know.
He would just say, I don't have an explanation, don't have an explanation. So finally, we just said, enough's enough.
Taylor, I've been sitting out here in the hallway listening to this you're talking about, and I'm just about sick of it. You know what happened to this girl. Look at this. You were there. You know what happened to her. We know you were there. The evidence shows you were there. Why did you do this to this girl? Huh? Why'd you do that?
And that's when you really saw Taylor change. Once he saw the crime scene photo, this is what happened, this is what you did. You need to talk about this.
Finally, with evidence of the crime staring him right in the face, Taylor Olson begins sharing his own account of the night of the murder.
I just didn't understand what happened.
Did you
thought I got too drunk.
Have blood on you? Were you cut?
I don't remember if I was cut.
Eventually, more details begin trickling in as Olson says he was out that night with a friend named Noah Cox.
Me and Noah went out and jacked a CD player out of a car. And we kind of got lost from each other. And someone came out when we were breaking into cars and yelled at us. Ran off. I don't know where the hell he was.
Now, wandering around on his own, Olson says he suddenly found himself outside Jonna's apartment.
He says he goes up back steps of Jonna and Jason Amamy's apartment.
I was looking for some keys. And then someone said, "Who are you?" or "What are you doing?" or something. And I was like, chill out. And then I just heard a yell, and then I just felt the pain.
He goes in Jonna's bedroom. Jonna wakes up. He says they get into a confrontation and she has a knife, stabs him on the arm, fought with her over the knife.
She did fight back hard. She fought for her life. That's why the stabbing kept going on and on.
You got the knife away from that person and just went kind of crazy?
Yeah. I guess they were sleeping with it. I just freaked out.
As for Jason Amamy, Olson says he had no idea that another person was in the apartment.
I didn't even remember anything about the guy until the news said it was two people. I didn't realize everyone got hurt like that.
Did you just go in there and things just went wrong?
I really don't know her, man. I've never met her.
There's no reason for him to select that apartment other than the fact that it was the first apartment he came to that had an open door.
And Jonna, according to her mom, was a stickler for locking the door every night. Nobody knows why the door was unlocked on that night.
After nearly 3 years of unanswered questions, with investigators looking at people in Jonna's life and complete strangers alike, Olson's confession is startling. And to wind up having a random person, a break-in, nobody who's really connected to her, that's not common, is it?
No, not really. It wasn't. It was a surprise to us, and I think everybody else was kind of surprised too.
Now that Knox County detectives know Taylor Olson's full story, he prepares to tell his mom and sister the truth.
Would you rather talk to your mom on the telephone, or would you rather talk to her in person?
I'd like to see her.
She really is being a mom. You kind of have to feel for her. What's going on? What has my son done?
What happened, Tay? The truth. Taylor, I love you.
It was an accident.
Are you sure? Taylor? Taylor, I need to know. It's okay. I want to know the truth, okay?
I can tell you.
Okay. You'd rather have an attorney, that's okay, too. Did they offer you one?
Yeah.
When did you tell him the truth? How did that come about?
I got my blood's on the knife. And my blood's like in
Then
the
why did they
back door.
let you go? Did they get the DNA back? Okay, and it matches? Taylor, okay. Listen, I'm gonna help you. I want to make sure that this is for real and that you did it. No, I don't know.
And at that point, you feel their brokenness over this horrific crime.
Taylor, I want you to know something. I want you to start praying because there is a God. Do you hear me? He loves you and will forgive if this is true.
I'm so sorry, Mom.
After coming clean to his family, Olson now faces the press.
Did you mean to kill her? Why did you do it? Was it an accident? But you stabbed her 26 times.
And his look was one of complete surprise, shock, baffled.
He told reporters it was an accident.
How's that an accident? Accidents happen one time, not 20 plus. No, that angered me that it was an accident.
Well, after 33 months of wondering and waiting, Jonna Berry's parents finally came face to face with the man charged with killing their daughter.
22-year-old Taylor Olson, he's facing 7 counts, including first-degree murder.
But just as Taylor Olson is about to go on trial, he does something that utterly rocks everyone involved in the case. You finally are getting to court, and then you get shocking news.
Our top story tonight. This man, 22-year-old Taylor Lee Olson of Knoxville, is behind bars. Now, today's announcement providing some relief to Jonna's family, who have spent years and countless hours searching for her killer.
What was that like for you to see him and to come face to face with him in court?
You look at that person and it's like, I know you're not supposed to hate anybody, but I hated him.
Cameras were not allowed inside the courtroom for today's hearing, but inside, 22-year-old Taylor Lee Olson did not enter a plea when he was arraigned.
Olson faces a 7-count indictment, including 3 counts of felony murder and 1 count of first-degree murder.
They're planning for a trial, and then we get word Taylor Lee Olson is dead. He hanged himself in his jail cell.
I got a call the Monday after Easter that he had been found in his jail cell, that he had fashioned a ligature with sheets.
You finally are getting to court, and then you get shocking news. He's taken his life.
When I got the news, I I became very upset. I even cried.
What were the tears for?
Just tears of relief because we don't have to fight the system.
But Joan Berry wants confirmation with her own eyes that her daughter's killer is really gone.
I called the DA's office and I said, I know you probably think I'm just a crazy old woman, but I want to see him dead, just the way I had to look at my daughter, dead.
Joan and Mike wanted that. We met in the conference room in the district attorney's office and showed them photographs of Taylor Olson's autopsy.
To some people it might sound cruel, but I think it gave me some closure.
I think that the Berrys needed to see the photos of Taylor Olson because they were deprived of the right of a trial.
Though there's no trial, the case isn't exactly over, because in writings left behind in his jail cell, Taylor Olson tries to argue his innocence from beyond the grave.
I read a bunch of letters that said, I didn't do it, and hung himself. That's a coward's admission of guilt.
Olson writes a long note called The Story, where he tries to shift blame by bringing back a familiar name.
Taylor Olson said he didn't do it and that Noah Cox, his friend, is the one who committed the crime.
Noah Cox was the individual that Taylor said he was with when they were breaking into vehicles and were separated.
In an audio recording with investigators, Noah Cox denies breaking into cars with Olson that night, and he's adamant that he was never in Jonna Berry's apartment.
Mr. Cox, were you present in the apartment when Jonna Berry was murdered?
No, sir. The whole story just really doesn't make sense.
We had talked to Noah Cox. He had submitted to a DNA sample. His DNA didn't come back as a match to the unknown sample.
There was no evidence showing that Noah Cox was ever in that apartment.
There's no other blood samples, fingerprints, nothing to indicate that anyone but Taylor was there.
Taylor Olson's partial fingerprint was ultimately found on the murder weapon. Was there any part of you that felt any sadness for the outcome?
I felt sad for his family. Two families' lives have been ruined, you know, painfully. I'll never see my daughter again. Now they'll never see their son again.
Through their pain, Joan and Mike Berry stay busy, focusing on the laws they've changed and all the victims they've helped. And now here we are at the TBI, where there is big change.
There is change.
There's now a memorial to Jonna at the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation's Knoxville DNA lab.
Long after we're gone, she'll still be helping others.
To be able to have made that kind of change in a state law, that must be gratifying, even in the midst of your heartbreak.
It is very gratifying, but it's also sad that this had to happen to my daughter.
And when Joan and Mike aren't tirelessly fighting for victims' rights,
every senator vote on the bill. Every senator vote has every senator voted.
You do remember that one?
August the 26th or 21st birthday.
they take time to savor the bright, wonderful memories their daughter left behind, including a note written to each of them on her high school graduation day.
I still have the letter, so I'd like to read it to you, and it says, "Dear Mom, I want to thank you for being my mom. You have always been the one I could turn to, no matter what. The only true friend that I've ever had. I only hope that someday that I'll be a mom as good as you are. I hope that I have made you proud, and I hope I will continue to make you proud in the future. I love you, your daughter, Jonna."
I love you guys.
She loved life. You know, I can still see her in her little red convertible with the top down and her ponytail blowing in the wind.
Jonna, smile for the camera, girl.
Hey. Jonna's dead, but she's not dead in my heart. I plant flowers in her memory. Sometimes I'm outside, I think butterflies remind me of her.
So she's still with you?
She is.
A 16-year-old girl watching television alone in the den. He pointed a knife at her and issued a chilling warning. Make one move and you'll be silent forever, and I'll be gone in the dark.
Crime after crime, it was that same terrifying MO.
I saw a flashlight shining down the hall, and I thought, now that's odd.
The leather gloves are really remembered because they made kind of sound, you know, when they moved.
He started ripping sheets or towels, I'm not sure, but it was very methodical and it was very slow.
It was a time when a vast area was terrified of one evil being.
This was a criminal who went by many different names.
He was known as the East Area Rapist in Sacramento County, the original Night Stalker in Orange County.
A 29-year-old wife was raped while her tied-up husband had to listen.
A 17-year-old girl was attacked here.
He would put his knees on the victim's chest, and he had a gun in one hand, a flashlight in the other.
Peepings, prowlings, stalking. Over 100 burglaries.
Police think he checked the home out before he strikes.
He put plates on the man's back, and he told the man, if I hear these rattle, I will kill your wife.
At least 13 homicides.
This is a sustained campaign of cruelty and viciousness that lasted for decades.
Welcome to Crime Scene, a podcast that examines real-life crimes. I'm Michelle McNamara of TrueCrimeDiary.com.
Michelle McNamara was a true crime blogger. She was a writer and producer. She was a citizen detective and a true crime writer. Very much being a mom during the day, very much writing about true crime at night. She was working on all different types of unsolved cases. Then she found a case that really dug its claws into her.
What turned him on was terror. The East Area Rapist, original Night Stalker, is California's most prolific serial offender. He murdered more people than the Zodiac Killer, but has little name recognition. Partly that's because he moved between communities, and his crimes spanned 10 years.
Everything about it is mystery, and it has such a boogeyman aspect to it.
Michelle used to talk about this case, and the thing that boggled her mind is that people didn't know about it. This was one of the most horrific serial killers in history, and nobody talked about him.
It's summer, 1976. It was the bicentennial. It's all about happy days. Laverne and Shirley.
Hassenbeff Incorporated.
In those days, the middle class in America was thriving.
We felt safe, but the crime rates were going up.
But suburban Sacramento was considered a safe place in the mid-70s.
You could ride your bike all over town.
My parents would just tell us be home before dark.
People didn't lock their doors, they left their windows open, especially people close to the river. We'd get the Delta breeze.
Everything changed in the summer of 1976.
An attack occurred in Rancho Cordova.
A young lady woke up, and there's a guy standing in the doorway. He blindfolded her, tied her up,
and then sexually assaults her. This is the first known sexual assault attributed to the man we know as the East Area Rapist.
Nobody knew about the first attack except the police. The first attack, the second, the third, the fourth.
When this first started in Sacramento, a lot of the people didn't know what was going on. They didn't put it in the paper at the time.
The press had not yet covered it because Sacramento County Sheriff's Department asked them not to.
There was a reason for that. That if you put it in there, the suspect's going to know that you're looking for him.
At the time the rape started happening in Sacramento Sheriff's Department didn't have a specialized sexual assault unit. Just whoever had a free caseload, you know, that could take on another case. And so I did not become involved with these cases until rape number 5, when it was Jane Carson.
I was 30 years old. I was married with a 3-year-old son. My husband was stationed at McClellan Air Force Base.
Jane was a nurse. She was a colonel in the Air Force Reserve.
It was about 6:30 in the morning. My 3-year-old son hopped in bed with me for a snuggle. I heard the garage door close, and I knew my husband had just left for work. I saw a flashlight shining down the hall, and I thought, now that's odd, and I screamed out to my husband, "What have you forgotten?" And there was no answer.
Then the rapist, all dressed in ski mask and dark clothes, shining a flashlight at her.
He told us with clenched teeth, "Shut up or I'll kill you."
He tells her to turn over and he's going to tie her up.
He gags us, both of us. He blindfolds us. And he ties us up with shoelaces, very tight. His next move was to move my son. I was already scared to death, but this is where the fear really took place.
All she's thinking about is the life of her little boy and saving him.
After the rape was over, praise the Lord, he moved my son back next to me. I could feel his body, and then I was relieved. So we hobbled around to the front fence, screamed for a neighbor. She called the police. And then Carol Daly, the female detective, showed up. And I call her my angel.
One of my great heroes of this story is Carol Daly. She was an investigator for the Sheriff Department in Sacramento. She was asked to go out and interview the victims.
Maybe something that the man said, or something that he did to you, or something that you recall hearing.
Through that process, she was able to glean a lot of information, like what he would say to his victims. And sometimes he would call out a name.
In one of the cases, the victim said that she heard him crying and saying Bonnie.
For years, detectives didn't know what to make of this name. Who's Bonnie?
Bonnie was not a victim, but a mystery woman at the center of the case.
Bonnie was the girlfriend and then fiance of Joseph D'Angelo.
One of the first women to get a real glimpse of the psychopathy behind Joe D'Angelo was Bonnie Caldwell.
She's 18, really smart, going to a community college studying nursing. And she's in the middle of the quad, and this older guy ambles up to her and begins a conversation.
Bonnie talked about her relationship with Joe D'Angelo in the HBO docuseries All Be Gone in the Dark.
He was very gregarious, outgoing to all my friends. We'd been together close to a year. He gave me a high solitaire engagement ring. And he told me that we're going to be married.
They were both students at the time. He was studying criminal justice. So Joe was someone who initially was impressive to Bonnie. He was exciting. He had a motorcycle. He taught her to shoot. But the longer she dated him, the more trouble began materializing.
He takes her on thrill rides. And this is where the relationship starts to show its hand with Joe.
Joe, without saying a word to me, just turned right, went down a very steep bank that I had no idea what he was doing.
He's obviously thrilled not just by the speed, but he's thrilled by Bonnie's terror.
The rules were never for him. So many of the things that we did together, he pushed me toward fear.
As they're riding on a motorcycle, a German Shepherd comes out from the side of the road and nips at the tires, and Joe swings a foot out and breaks the dog's neck instantly. There's such an efficiency to his movement that stuns her.
Eventually, Bonnie said, "I don't want to be with you anymore."
She actually broke their engagement. He showed up at her house in the middle of the night. He had a gun, and he told her that she had to marry him.
Just inches from my face, there was the barrel of a gun pointing at me, and it was Joe. What he said to me was, "Get your clothes on, get dressed, we're going to Reno, and we're going to get married tonight."
Her dad was able to break it up and send Joe on his way. I think it's a foreshadowing that he was going to use violence against people in the future.
Bonnie breaks her engagement with Joe D'Angelo, and within just a few years, strange crimes start happening in Rancho Cordova.
He would empty female underwear drawers and perfectly line up the underwear down the hallway.
It's all control and power. This is my house now. These are my items now. He's the king of the house.
Every obsession needs a room of its own. Mine was strewn with coloring paper, on which I'd scribbled down California penal codes in crayon. It was around midnight on July 3rd, 2012, when I opened a document I'd compiled listing all the unique items he'd stolen over the years.
He would take mementos, almost like they were trophies from inside the home.
He would steal rings with engravings on them.
He stole driver's license, he stole photos from albums.
There is a fantasy component about these crimes.
I still have a part of you. I have your jewelry, I have your driver's license, I have, something that means something to you. And now I own it.
He was a serial rapist known as the Ear, attacking women and girls. First in East Sacramento County. This place meant something to him. He attacked here first and kept coming back. Was it home? Some of the investigators, especially the ones who worked the case in the beginning, think so.
We were always trying to figure out why victims were chosen and why the locations were chosen.
For Joe D'Angelo, this was his home, right in his own backyard. He lived in 3 or 4 houses in this exact same area where many of the rapes were committed.
He grew up in Rancho Cordova. He was familiar with the playgrounds, the schools, the empty lots. This is the home of the first documented rape that occurred in Sacramento County. He was very agile. He could jump over fences. He knew which way to go from whatever neighborhood he was in. He knew the best way to get in and out.
He knew this area like the back of his hand. He grew up there.
Joseph D'Angelo Jr. grew up the son of a master sergeant in the Air Force who moved around a lot.
We met Joe when he was 13 years old. My father was stationed at Mayfair Air Force Base, and then his father was transferred there, and we shared a duplex.
The girl who became very close to him at the time, Judy, described a very lonely boy.
He was missing a family. His mother and father had split when he was young.
At a very young age, he was neglected. He and his siblings would be locked in the closet and then beaten by the father.
Per his siblings, Joe D'Angelo received the worst of his vitriol and anger when they were growing up.
Joe was always over at our house, and he just became a good family friend. He never talked about himself. He never talked about any problems he might have. He never discussed anything that was bothering him. They started reporting, the peeping Toms here in Rancho. And I remember I was in the bedroom and I was asleep, and I had this feeling. I woke up because I had this feeling somebody was there. And when I looked up and glanced towards the window, I saw this outlined figure. I didn't do anything to let them know I saw them, that I was aware of them. So the next morning I came in here and I says, Dad, somebody was peeking in my window last night. And he says, what? And I says, yeah. And there was footprints out there in the dirt, 2 distinct footprints there.
It's very common for sexual offenders to start out, particularly in adolescence, as peepers or voyeurs that are creeping around the neighborhood, looking in windows, watching women undress, almost like a training ground.
Many of us had never seen anything like this before in our career. His whole thing was terror. It wasn't the sex. It was the terror that he wanted to put in these people that was his #1 priority.
His victims ranged in age from 13, I think, to 39.
Out of the first 10 attacks, 6 of those were juveniles.
Oftentimes, sex offenders or sexual serial murderers will start out with, I guess, easier victims that are younger, that are more vulnerable, victims that he can control.
My name is Chris Pedretti. I was 15. I was a kid, just a normal kid, cartwheels in the front yard, and really not a care in the world. It was not ever even a thought that our world might be unsafe.
So it was a week before Christmas. She'd been left home alone.
I was supposed to go to a high school dance, and it was the last day before Christmas vacation. I put a pizza in the oven, and I went to go play the piano. I remember hearing a noise, and I stopped playing and listened. Didn't hear it again. Oh, it was nothing. So I kept playing. It was very shortly after that, probably seconds, that he approached me.
She turned around and she saw a man in a ski mask.
I froze. The brain stopped thinking at that point. I mean, I just went straight into survival mode. I don't remember thinking at that point anything other than kind of turning into a robot. Just do what he says, do what he says. It was like Chris had left the body, and it was just the body left.
That individual led her to the back patio. She tied her up.
I didn't know about rape. I certainly didn't know about sex. What he did to me, what he took from me, I can't ever get it back. He kind of ruined my childhood. You know, he took it away.
Everybody knew something was going on, but nobody knew exactly what.
The sheriff decided that we would hold community forums. I had no idea there were going to be several hundred people that would show up.
If we have a gun, could we shoot him? Knowing what I know about this man, if I had a gun, I definitely would shoot him. And I would not shoot to injure, I would shoot to take care of him.
He liked this. He liked the police being on edge. He liked the town being on edge.
I have a gun, but I still don't feel safe being, at home alone.
Law enforcement was bracing for more attacks as his rampage of violence continued. His tactics were changing, and no one knew what he would do next.
So I have to admit, I'm scared to death.
The young girl made one bad move after another. Her attitude was much too inviting. She should never have stopped to window shop at night.
In the 1970s, when a woman reported rape, she was shamed, she was blamed. Often she was ostracized by her own community.
Rape cases really weren't considered serious. They were misdemeanor. You had to make an arrest within a year, or else they were not prosecuted. Even if an arrest was made, the defense was always it was the victim's fault.
Rape was such a prevalent crime back in those days that there were multiple serial rapists operating in California.
217 were reported last year. That's about one every day and a half.
In the Bay Area, you had the stinky rapist who smelled like diesel fuel.
I had pillowcase rapist. You had the key car rapist.
When the East Area rapist became active in Sacramento, he quickly upstaged all the other rapists in the area because of how terrifying his MO was.
Concern over rape is mounting in this community.
There was panic in the city of Sacramento. The fact that they couldn't catch this guy just ignited the city in fear.
No one knows where or when he'll strike again.
They were getting guard dogs. They were putting in alarm systems in their homes.
Have the dog in the house, the big dog.
The worst thing is not knowing. All you can do is take every possible precaution and then hope that he gets caught before he gets to you.
Every day in the newspaper, it was number 8, it was number 10, it was number 15, 20. It just kept going on and on and on.
It seemed like every time investigators thought they were getting close, he would disappear. But he kept attacking again and again.
He was elusive, like a puff of smoke in the night.
Detective Carol Daly wanted this serial rapist behind bars, and she was relentless in her pursuit of him, but constantly frustrated by the fact that they couldn't catch him.
The officers in this department are working on this case are frustrated because there's just no evidence to give any firm leads. We're doing everything humanly possible to catch this man.
He was a phantom.
Descriptions ranged pretty widely. One person thought he was Hispanic.
And now all of a sudden, he's blonde hair, blue-eyed. There are like 8, 9, 10 drawings of him. and they have completely changed.
The best descriptions that we had were his height and his possible weight. We knew he wore a size 9 shoe.
When the police were taking the victim's statements, many of the women described his penis as being very, very small.
We said, all right, if he is so under-endowed, we went to a doctor who specialized in what I would call infantile penises to see if he had any patients that came in, and we didn't have any luck there.
It's a very serious situation. I think it's very dangerous.
The last thing I think of when I'm going to bed is I look at the doorway in my bedroom and I think that he could be standing there.
Detective Daly was following every lead.
We filled out a long background form for the victims. Where did they go to school? What did they look like? What age were they? You know, what was their build? There was no pattern among any of the victims. Because he was just prowling. He would see them and follow them home.
Margaret Wardlow, she was just 13 years old when she was attacked by the East Area rapists.
Margaret was probably the strongest young victim I have ever talked to.
Growing up in Sacramento was great. Where we lived was ideal. It was right next to the American River. Go down there with my dog after school, go fishing. Totally felt safe.
Margaret had a curiosity about her. She wanted to know about the East Area rapists.
I was a reader of everything I could get my hands on that had to do with this individual. Like, what was making this guy tick? Why was he doing this?
She herself became a victim. I believe there was a pre-wired strength in her mind that helped her survive this attack.
It was a school night, just my mother and myself. I went to bed at like a regular school night hour. I was awoken about 2:30 in the morning with a flashlight in my face. I thought it was a joke. I thought my mom had asked him to like come in and wake me up and scare me or something.
As he tied her up and then went into the mother's room, Margaret knew that either her or her mother were going to be the victim.
The rapist tied up her mother and put plates on her back as a warning device.
He did that with so many of the victims when there was more than one person in the house. If he heard anybody moving, he was right back and told them, don't move, I'm gonna kill you, I'll kill you.
Putting the dishes on someone's back, he knows he has to do something, either hurt them, flee. So as much of the bravado as he's trying to convey, he's scared of the physical confrontation.
A little voice inside of me said, you know, you get out of a lot of stuff, Margaret, but you're not gonna get out of this one. The whole time he'd been threatening me, he'd been saying, do you wanna die? He wanted fear. He wanted to see fear in me.
This is your psychological sadist. He is enjoying controlling that woman like that.
This guy was so beyond the pale, and that was why Michelle was so interested in him, is because he was so frightening.
The way he walks around people's houses and the way he destroys them and sort of hangs out and eats, there's something so psychologically fascinating about that to me. It's like he got to the emotional center of people's lives and just wanted to destroy that.
Michelle caught the bug. She started going down the rabbit holes in this case. At this point, instead of writing a book, she was investigating the case.
I'm obsessed. It's not healthy. I know the strangest details about him. I know his blood type. I know his penis size. He vaulted fences. He escaped foot chases. But I believe it's the rare moments when he was human that will be his downfall in the end.
As time went on, this East Area rapist started to crisscross Sacramento, attacking women home alone or women with their kids in the middle of the night.
He seemed to be expanding what his capabilities were when he was carrying out these crimes.
He became much more aggressive, and his tactics. He did more horrible things than I can even describe.
This tells us that the offender is adapting and learning as he is committing crimes. He really messes with people's minds, both the investigators and the victims.
Part of the thrill of the game for him was a kind of connect-the-dots puzzle he played with people. He stole 2 packs of Winston cigarettes from the first victim and left them outside the 4th victim's house. Junk jewelry stolen from a neighbor 2 weeks earlier was left at the 5th victim's house. It was a power play, a signal of ubiquity. I am both nowhere and everywhere. You may not think you have something in common with your neighbor, but you do. Me.
Michelle started as a blogger talking about cases that no one else was paying attention to and trying to get people motivated to look at those cases.
The case dragged me under quickly. Curiosity turned to clawing hunger. I was on the hunt, absorbed by a click fever that connected my propulsive tapping with a dopamine rush. I wasn't alone. I found a group of hardcore seekers who congregated on an online message board and exchanged clues and theories on the case.
Citizen sleuths, they are ordinary people that go to work, they go home, they put their kids to bed, and then they go on the computer. And they spend hours and hours trying to solve certain crimes.
My name is Paul Haynes. I was Michelle McNamara's research collaborator. When I first began learning about the case, there was a specific forum dedicated to the East Area Rapist. It was the most active forum on that website.
Paul Haynes was a writer living in Florida, and Michelle recognized that he had a great proclivity for digging into old archives and things. It was a case that a lot of citizen detectives got into because there were so many clues.
Earons wasn't a supervillain. He was a man, a guy with habits and traits and preferences that, with enough examination, should shine like Hansel's breadcrumbs in the woods.
My name is Kay Gilbraith, and I call myself a researcher. I started seeing patterns emerging to me where I became convinced it was solvable, because all of the crimes had common bonds.
He was leaving ligatures at the scene with this particular knot.
He would eat food out of the victims' refrigerators. I was spending every waking hour trying to find men who fit the criteria. And it was at that time that I first connected with Michelle.
It's a fascinating community. I had been on those boards for a while following the story because everyone had such great information.
Michelle's quest was to get this case solved. She just had an abiding curiosity in letting the details lead us to the perpetrator.
The East Area Rapist would target not people, but neighborhoods. You can see the proximity of these homes to green belts like drainage ditches and creeks and canals.
We believe he used the canal as an escape route, which ran along the back of so many properties. He was a great escape artist.
These are passageways that this killer used to surveil the residents unseen, cloaked by the darkness of these green belts.
He was able to look over those fences, look into those homes, look at what time people ate dinner. I mean, he knew what time the husband left.
The Sacramento Sheriff's Office has invested more than 40,000 man-hours in the search for the East Area Rapist.
Sacramento would have a helicopter up in the sky, and they all knew it was because they were chasing the East Area Rapist.
It was terrible. It was terrible to hear that. Well, he didn't like it either. And it turns out that he served in Vietnam. He left Sacramento because of that helicopter. And then these things started up in the East Bay of San Francisco.
There are two things known about the rapist. One is he has never been caught in a home where there was a man present. The other is he's never been in a home where there has been a big dog.
The East Area Rapist worked on challenges. Everything he saw in the paper, if we said he didn't do something, he did it the next time.
When the newspapers reported that he was just attacking single females, he took this as a challenge.
At attack number 16, he's starting to attack with a man present, and then 2/3 of the attacks he does since then has a man present. He is purposefully choosing couples.
My name's Gay Hardwick.
My name's Bob Hardwick, and we've been married 41 years this August. Happily married 41 years.
Bob and Gay Hardwick were a couple living in Stockton, California.
We had picked out a home in one of the little picture-perfect tree-lined streets. We were just happy in our new home, living together. The day of our attack was March 18th, 1978, and we were attack number 31. We had gone out to dinner and a movie, normal Friday night, and we came home around 10 o'clock and went to bed. Later that night, we were awakened by very bright light right in our faces and a voice saying, "Wake up, wake up."
The attack on Bob and Gay Hardwick was much like all the other attacks in that he confronted Bob and Gay when they were in bed. He ordered her at gunpoint to bind Bob.
Nothing you can do when there's a .357 Magnum pointed
at your
head.
He then bound Gay. He retied Bob.
Turns him over, puts the plates on his back as a warning device.
Things would go silent for a period of time. And then as soon as they moved, he was right in their face. Move and I'll kill you.
Ultimately, he moved Gay into the living room where he sexually assaulted her.
You're convinced at that moment that this is not a full human being that you're dealing with.
He can not only humiliate a woman who's about to rape, but he can also completely, in his mind, emasculate her partner, putting him in a position where he is helpless and has to listen to what's going on in a different room.
These attacks are happening in the macho 1970s. $6 million man.
We have the capability to make the world's first bionic man.
Oh, talk to me, good buddy. And Burt Reynolds, these are the icons. And the men were not looked at as victims. They were looked at as just being weak for not being able to protect their wives and their girlfriends.
I never talked to anybody about it over the years. I just wanted to put it out of my mind,
It was, we're going to get through this. We're going to get back to normal. And you don't ever really make it to normal.
It was tough, but I loved her, and I said we're going to get through it.
Our home never felt the same again. Every surface that you could think of was covered in fingerprint dust. It just looked like a smoke bomb had been set off in our house. It was contaminated and ruined for us.
He wasn't out attacking people on lovers' lanes or in parks. He was attacking people where they feel the most safe, in bed with their partner in their home. And he was able to say, you know what? I have so much power, I can take all of that security away and devastate your life.
Why couldn't they catch him? Somehow, he was always one step ahead of law enforcement, and they wondered, could he be one of us?
After the East Area Rapist would terrorize these women, sometimes he would call them and taunt them.
Hello? Hello?
This rapist did not stop with just the assault of that night. He terrorized them their whole lives.
This is that psychological sadist at work. He is getting off on continuing to cause fear in his victim.
I'm Michelle McNamara of TrueCrimeDiary.com. Larry Crompton is a retired lieutenant for the Contra Costa Sheriff's Department. He worked on the Rapist Task Force in the 70s. How optimistic are you that
that, you know, that he may be caught one day.
Very, very optimistic.
I had worked many crimes while I was on the department, but none of them were really like this. I knew what these people went through, and I knew what the family was going through. I couldn't let it go. And for many years, it was me. What did I miss? What did I do wrong? Why didn't I catch him?
Helicopters, roadblocks, citizen patrols taking down plate numbers, hypnotists, psychics, nothing. You were a scent and shoe impressions. Bloodhounds and detectives tracked both. They led away. They led nowhere.
He next shows up down in Modesto in June of 1978. He attacks a couple down there. And then 48 hours later, he's up in the town of Davis, over 110 driving miles away, and is attacking a UC Davis co-ed there.
Early Wednesday morning, the infamous masked man made his 44th attack on a young couple living in Mission San Jose.
It was as if he knew what police were doing. And all along, many of the detectives who were working the case thought that maybe he was a police officer or military. And ultimately, that turned out to be true.
You should have seen me coming.
One of the things that's important to remember when you're looking at Joseph D'Angelo is he actually graduated with an associate degree in police science.
He had told Bonnie that his aspiration was to join the California Highway Patrol.
You should have seen me coming.
He studied evidence and he studied crime scene.
He went to Northern California, and he applied with the Auburn Police Department and was hired there. And then that's when he started his rapes.
He actually started out committing crimes as a teenager. At some point, he even blew up a dog with a firework, killed the dog while he was committing a residential burglary.
You should have seen me coming.
It makes sense that somebody who has a need for control, wants to be in power, would be attracted to a position that allows him to have that every single day.
When I was working the cases, I thought, he's got to be in law enforcement.
The first clue was in attack number 3 in Sacramento. He had gloves on to protect from fingerprints, and he's got a gun in one hand and a padded baton.
You had better catch him. He is going to kill. He wants to kill.
It was never enough to commit the horrible crimes. It always had to be, and let me do something more.
We all want to think that we would recognize a serial killer based on how this person looks.
I wonder if he was out stalking his next victim. I don't know, because everything seems so normal.
The scariest aspects of serial killers is they don't look different.
From the very beginning, I knew DNA was going to solve this case.
Police had been sitting on this genetic fingerprint for 4 decades.
Holy smokes, this is like the big break.
He's been living there under everybody's noses.
This is the Golden State Killer?
I just want to tell you, buddy, to rot in hell.
Michelle McNamara was a true crime blogger.
She was a citizen detective and a true crime writer.
She was talking to her publisher about writing a book that didn't have an ending.
My interest in crime has personal roots. The unsolved murder of a neighbor when I was 14 sparked a fascination with cold cases. What gripped me was the specter of that question mark where the killer's face should be. I need to see his face. He loses his power when we know his face.
When I'm puzzling over the details of an unsolved crime, I'm like a rat in a maze given a task. The world narrows, the search propels. I felt, in the truest sense of the word, gripped. I had a murder habit, and it was bad. I would feed it for the rest of my life.
I considered Michelle McNamara a friend. She impacted the Golden State Killer case. One way we're able to keep on investigating the case is to have public interest, to have the online interest, and she helped push that.
On a sleepless night last July, I Googled a description of a pair of cufflinks he stole. Then a jolt of recognition. There they were. I bought them immediately. The best thing to do, I knew, was to turn the cufflinks over to an authority on the killer.
As soon as I saw those cufflinks, I thought, this is pretty astonishing. I photographed those and sent those to surviving victims because it was potentially a very good lead in the case.
Unfortunately, the cufflinks didn't pan out. The victims looked at them and they weren't the cufflinks that were stolen.
And she was devastated. I don't know if Michelle was convinced she could solve the case, but I believe that she was convinced she could make a difference and that she wanted to do it for the victims.
He forced the woman at knife point to tie up her boyfriend, then he tied her up and raped her.
The East Area rapist has struck 40 times in the last 2.5 years, and he hasn't been caught yet.
He started inflicting real physical pain on the victims, like punching, giving black eyes.
One of the most sadistic things I think that he would do would be to say to them, I'm going to cut off a piece of your wife and bring it back to you.
We knew that he was becoming more and more angry.
As fear in the community intensified, Detective Carol Daly held regular public forums.
One thing I want to emphasize, ladies, is for you not to be polite. If you are going to defend yourself, you injure him enough to incapacitate him in any way that you can.
I started working with these cases, and I thought, if I can talk to one of the people that deal with these rapists, maybe I can get into the head of what I'm looking for. Vacaville Medical Center is where they have rapists that have been convicted.
The men were asked what they thought was motivating the East Area rapists.
The mere fact that he ties his victims up has to have them completely submissive. You can sense the conquest he had.
You're not what you think you are, and you won't accept it, so you strike out to prove to them that you are, but in reality you aren't. And until you face that, you're going to keep on going and going.
If I'm willing to kill you, the first move you make, you're going to be dead.
The doctor told me, you had better catch him. He is going to kill. He wants to kill.
He first becomes a burglar, and then he progresses to sexual assault, and then proceeds to escalate to murder.
The East Area rapist disappeared from Northern California in July of 1979. He showed up in Santa Barbara in October of '79, and shortly thereafter, he starts killing.
The Pacific Ocean was warming up, an inviting churn of white caps making its way toward soft sand and an endless line of 100-foot palm trees. Golden teenage boys with blank hair and effortless muscles headed for the water with their boards in a gait the locals called the Surfer Baths. This was Santa Barbara's magic time.
Dr. Offerman was an orthopedic surgeon. He had begun dating a psychologist named Alexandra Manning.
On the morning of December 30th, 1979, some friends of Robert Offerman's had shown up at his condo for a tennis game. There was no answer at the door.
I went in the sliding door and looked around the living room.
On the floor, there were Christmas ornaments that had fallen off on the ground.
Some bones right by the sliding door, which I thought he would leave it there, so we knew something was wrong. So I took a right towards his bedroom, and that's when I saw Miss Manning on the bed. He was on the floor.
Offerman and Manning both were shot and killed.
It was the holidays. As authorities processed the crime scene, they stepped around a turkey carcass wrapped in cellophane that had been discarded on the patio. They concluded that at some point the killer had opened the refrigerator and helped himself to Dr. Offerman's leftover Christmas dinner.
It was never enough to commit the horrible crimes. It always had to be, and let me do something more. Let me go into your refrigerator and eat your holiday meal. The level of depravity that this man had and the execution of it was despicable and shocking.
Larry Crompton, who led the EAR task force in Contra Costa County, reached out to Santa Barbara investigators and told them this sounds like the East Area rapist that we've been dealing with.
When I called Santa Barbara and talked to the lieutenant and said, I heard that you had a double homicide, would like to know about it because we think it's our rapist that is down there. And he said, don't know what you're talking about. Haven't had anything like that. Nope.
Law enforcement agencies weren't necessarily as connected as they are now. I think there was still this thought that these are isolated instances throughout California.
And that was it. It was so frustrating.
I am sure that Larry Crompton called many jurisdictions because he truly believed that the rapist would move on and become a killer.
Santa Barbara is an enclave of rich people. You've got Ronald Reagan. You've got people that are worried about their property values. They don't want news about a double murder in a house going wide. Pretty soon it gets off the front page.
He gets a taste for not only murdering people, but murdering them after these prolonged, terrifying times in their homes.
In 1979, a new and terrifying chapter. He starts a killing spree.
2 double murders in Goleta, the 1 double murder in Ventura, the murder in Irvine, and the double murder in Dana Point.
The rampage of violence was brutal and unstoppable.
4 horrible murders within a 6-block radius in a suburban middle-class neighborhood.
We knew it was the same person, but we couldn't prove it.
Profilers of that day said, I know of no one who does what this offender does.
I thought once he started killing, there's no way he can stop, and he's going to continue to do it.
Most violent criminals smash through life like human sledgehammers. They're caught easily, but every so often a blue moon surfaces. A snow leopard slinks by.
After 1981, we don't have an attack for 5 years.
Well, I think people slow down in life. You don't have that sort of energy to be prowling. Like, you literally can't be out at 3 a.m. like running across roofs because you're not 18 anymore.
I don't believe that his sexual deviances went away, but I can believe that he found other, less risky ways of satisfying those urges.
Could he have moved out of the state, out of the country? Could he have died, got medicated? I mean, I don't know.
In 1981, Joe D'Angelo became a father. The first of his 3 daughters was born. The second of his 3 daughters was born in '86. And then his 3rd daughter was born in 1989.
He had a wife who was a lawyer. He lived a middle-class existence.
He sent all his girls through Montessori schools, and he would take them to their different sports events, the horseback riding, the roller skating.
We all want to think that we would recognize a serial killer based on how this person looks. And yet, so often, this is somebody who's living in the community, who knows his neighbors, and I think that is one of the scariest aspects of serial killers, is they don't look different from other people.
My sister and I, Melody, used to take turns going out and babysitting while Sharon was in school. And I didn't start thinking about it till after he was arrested. Because when they started showing all these dates, I'm going, oh my goodness. I wonder if he was out stalking his next victim. I don't know.
It's been 5 years with no more rapes or murders by Joseph D'Angelo.
For some reason, he runs across beautiful 18-year-old Janelle Cruz and can't help himself and kills her.
Janelle was kind of a shy girl. She was very pretty, very popular.
The brief life of Janelle Cruz was no less tragic than her death. Her biological father was long out of the picture.
Her parents had gone to a cruise with her 6-year-old brother, and she was staying at the residence alone.
And for the first time, left my daughter alone, because that was another thing that I Never did, because I was worried that if I was gone, that something might happen.
Janelle Cruz had had a friend over to the house and heard noises in the backyard.
They got up to inspect that, saw nothing.
And sometime that night, Janelle was confronted by an intruder. She was raped, and then she was bludgeoned to death.
And I got that telephone call that every mother and any family member is just devastated by.
The Janelle case just felt like such an outlier because he had decided to go after couples, and then he had stopped for a really long time, and then he attacks Janelle. And then that seemingly is his last attack.
Some think you died or went to prison. Not me. I think you bailed when the world began to change.
In the 1970s, there was no DNA.
The investigators had evidence, but couldn't connect the crime scenes. They needed the science to catch up.
DNA didn't enter the forensic landscape until about 1986, 1987.
It would take 15 years for DNA to finally link the Northern California East Area Rapist series with the Southern California homicides, as all being done by one man.
I was immediately on the phone to Larry Poole down at Orange County Sheriff's Office, and we're talking about, holy smokes, this is like the big break.
But detectives still had no idea who he was.
I got a little excited maybe in the first 18 to 24 months, but over the years, I chronicled and logged over 8,700 suspects in the investigation.
After 5 years, we got no match, and after 10 years, we got no match, and we just were not getting a hit.
When people have asked whether it worries me that the killer may still be out there, I wave dismissively, pointing out that he'd be much older now. He can't hurt me, I say, not realizing that in every sleepless hour, in every minute spent hunting him and not cuddling my daughter, he already has.
Michelle McNamara was a mom, married to actor Patton Oswalt, investigating this case and working on a book. Patton describes her as staying awake at all hours of the night, would not put down her computer, would not put away the files.
At the same time, struggling with her writing and publication deadlines, and she began self-medicating. I actually see her as being his final victim.
I got an email from a friend of Michelle's, and he told me that Michelle had passed away that morning. I think I went completely numb.
I eventually learned that she had fallen asleep and didn't get up.
According to the medical examiner's report, Michelle died from a combination of fentanyl, Xanax, and I believe Adderall. And that's when the magnitude of her loss hit me.
I immediately thought, what can I do? I can help finish this book. When Michelle passed, we decided at the end of the book, what are the strings that she left us to get us out of this maze? It was genetic genealogy.
From the very beginning, I knew DNA was going to solve this case.
Thousands of pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, and only one person knew what it was supposed to look like. That one person wasn't Michelle. It was the killer himself.
It has now been 40 years that one of the most prolific serial killers in American history has managed to elude police. The man known as the Golden State Killer has been linked to 50 rapes and 13 murders. Police are frustrated and running out of leads.
I have no path to go on this investigation. None of the tips are coming in or anything that I'm excited about, so I'm floundering.
When Michelle passed and me and Paul were working on the book, we talk about what are the strings that she left us to get us out of this maze. And it was genetic genealogy.
Forensic genealogy was something that Michelle was excited about, and that seemed like the most viable, direct pathway to this offender's identity.
Hi, and welcome to 23andMe.
Companies like Ancestry.com and 23andMe had already been using genetic genealogy for years, allowing millions of customers to spit into a tube and use their DNA to discover family roots and long-lost relatives.
Ancestry.com searches the world's largest online family history research.
As a growing number, particular of adoptees, are realizing these sites that are really created for learning about family history can help me start to figure out who I'm biologically related to. To help people to find their biological mothers, to find their biological fathers.
How are you?
To find siblings, to find cousins.
It wasn't too long for people to realize, wait a minute, what if we use the DNA of criminals to try and identify their second cousins or third cousins and try to narrow it down from there?
I start learning how this technology could be used. We become blown away at the power of it. And then we recognize this is the way we need to go. But then there was a concern as to whether we had enough DNA. I had consumed all the East Area Rapist DNA, doing all the testing I had done over the years.
And he found a pristine DNA sample going back to the 1980 murder of Lyman and Charlene Smith in Ventura County.
A second sexual assault kit in the coroner's office that had never been opened.
To my knowledge, there are no other medical examiners who make duplicate rape kits.
In March of 1980, Lyman and Charlene Smith were found bludgeoned to death in their bed.
It was a horrific scene that I will never forget. I'd arrive at the scene with my little suitcase, a tube rack, dry ice, and a microscope. I always made duplicate kits, and both kits were identical.
That turned out to be a gold mine for us because that second kit had sat in the coroner's possession for 38 years untouched. And so these swabs collected from Charlene Smith's body were pristine.
Police had been sitting on this genetic fingerprint for 4 decades, waiting for the science to catch up. Genetic genealogy had only been used to solve a criminal case once before by a woman named Barbara Ray Venter.
I've always liked puzzles. I used to love playing Clue when I was a kid. What I've discovered is that law enforcement are pretty big gossips. And so they were all sort of talking amongst each other. And apparently Paul was talking to the detective on the other case.
And I was like, how did you do that? I called Barbara up and I explained, I'm working a case. It's an old case. I don't tell her what case it is, but could this be done to identify this unknown offender?
So Paul Holes was able to take that DNA and convert it into a DNA profile, which is basically a number. And he used this no-frills genealogy website called GEDmatch.
And I just uploaded the Golden State Killer's profile and allowed the GEDmatch servers to do their magic and produce the list of people that potentially shared some DNA with my offender.
We were all logging in several times a day to see if the matches are there.
Then all of a sudden, he started connecting to some distant relatives. We're talking 3rd, 4th, 5th cousins.
So we immediately knew that we were going to be building a lot of family trees to sort out who he was.
We're now trying to identify common ancestors from this list of people who share DNA with the person we're looking for. And we end up spending 4 months building family trees.
And unlike if you were to upload your DNA to a website and try to build out a family tree from yourself being the beginning point, This is reverse engineering a family tree. So you start with a wide swath of potential relatives, and by a painstaking process of elimination, you start cutting down that pool. Narrow it down, narrow it down, narrow it down.
Genealogy testing had indicated that our offender was of European descent.
40% Southern European, and a number of the matches that we had were with people who had Italian surnames.
Once it came down to that final pool, that's when the real detective work began. You had to hit public records. Things like marriage certificates, birth certificates, grave site markings.
So now we only had 6 men on the list. So now they had to be a certain age, they had to be in Northern California, and they had to be related only through the maternal line to our crime scene DNA. And at that point, we then had one other piece of information that we hadn't applied yet, and that was eye color.
She looks at a separate tool on a related site that suggests that their suspect had blue eyes and was bald.
The FBI then pulled the California DMV records for those 6 men. Only one had blue eyes.
Joseph D'Angelo.
Joseph D'Angelo.
Joseph D'Angelo. After 4 decades and countless hours of detective work, it's an emerging technology, genetic genealogy, that finally gives investigators their strongest lead yet, a name.
Who is this guy? I need to start drilling down on him, and I'm now within a couple of weeks of retiring. So I'm trying to find out as much as possible, as fast as possible, about Joe D'Angelo.
He's not in any of the criminal databases, so police start putting together a case to either eliminate him or prove he is in fact the man they're looking for.
Physically, he was within the specs of what we were expecting for the Golden State Killer. Born in 1945, a little bit on the older side, but most certainly within that 1940 to 1960 range.
Investigators started zeroing in on Joseph D'Angelo, and they started digging up things about his past.
He goes into the Navy. We know he is stationed in San Diego. We know that he spent some time overseas.
Joe D'Angelo returned to Sacramento, began working with the Auburn Police Department.
He had a nickname on the department. It was Junk Food Joey. He would always have a Coke in his hand, a bag of chips, a candy bar. He really violated people's space all the time. Get kind of close to your face and always be touching you.
He had been fired from Auburn Police back in 1979.
He had been observed shoplifting a can of dog repellent and a hammer from a Citrus Heights drugstore. He was accosted by the clerk. He was subsequently arrested.
Auburn Police Chief Nick Willick had to fire D'Angelo at the time.
And the chief said when Joe was put on administrative leave, he had threatened to kill me.
I immediately remembered back my daughter, you know, being afraid. A short time after he had been fired, she said, there was someone looking in my bedroom window with a flashlight.
She said he got up and ran outside. That man was gone, but there were shoe impressions all around the perimeter of his house.
But there's another huge piece of the puzzle they had been investigating in relation to possible suspects, and that piece also seemingly falls into place in D'Angelo's story, Bonnie.
There's a newspaper clip from an Auburn journal about the engagement, and there's this picture of a young brunette. She's 18 years old.
Announcing his engagement in 1970 to a woman named Bonnie Colwell.
Remember, Bonnie was one of D'Angelo's early girlfriends who broke off their engagement. So suddenly, Detective Holes and others were like, wait a minute, could this be Bonnie that we remember following early on in the case?
And of course, Bonnie was significant due to the victim in attack number 36.
While the East Area Rapist is literally raping that victim, he is crying and he's saying, I hate you, Bonnie, over and over. I'm now within days of retiring. It's like, okay, I've got to go boots on the ground on this D'Angelo.
More and more things connect and click. You know, right place, right time. Let's go see if this is the guy.
I'm now my second to last day at work, and I go, I have to go see this guy, where he's living. And I park on the curb directly opposite from D'Angelo's house. There's a car in the driveway. I'm pretty sure he's home. And I'm sitting there, and I'm wondering, what's the likelihood, really, that this is the Golden State Killer?
A day before his retirement, Paul Holes literally has the suspect in his crosshairs. It's been a 24-year hunt, but he uses restraint and turns in his badge the next day.
It was a tough decision to drive away from that house that day. I was upset. I was like, you know, I didn't solve this case before I retired.
The Sacramento Sheriff's Office picks up where Paul Holes left off.
And so what they have to do next is conduct surveillance on Joseph D'Angelo. And what they're waiting for is an opportunity to collect his DNA.
And they secretly follow him to a shopping plaza.
But Joseph was not smoking, he was not spitting out gum. So what they had to work with was he had a car, they swabbed the door handle. And that gave them something that's called touch DNA.
They were able to pick up an initial DNA sample and some fingerprints from his car door.
I'm sitting in a Chinese restaurant in Colorado Springs, and my cell phone rings, and it's Lieutenant Kirk Campbell from Sacramento DA's office. You can absolutely not tell anybody about this. And at that moment I go, okay. And he says, the lab is excited about this.
It's mixed with DNA from other people, but it looks like it might be a close match.
But the Sacramento DA was saying, we want a cleaner sample.
So they stake out his house, wait for him to put out the trash.
He puts his trash out on the curb. They get a guy that comes and collects the trash.
They sneak over and pull tissue out of the trash bin and take that back to the lab.
And one of the items out of the trash had a single source male DNA profile that matched 100% the Golden State Killer's DNA profile.
Get this call from my chief deputy. I think his first words are you sitting down? And I asked him a million times, and I'm like, you better not be messing with me. He goes, they're shaking, Anne-Marie. They're shaking at the crime lab.
They got a match, but now they have to get the suspect into custody. So they call Paul Holes back to assist with the operation.
There was concerns about how he would respond if this did not go smoothly.
I can imagine they were prepared for every scenario. This is somebody who has been a sophisticated, a diverse, sadistic killer.
A law enforcement team now gathers outside D'Angelo's home for the takedown. He and his wife have been separated for decades, and he's living with his daughter and granddaughter.
The hope is to get him away from his house in order to be able to do it safely. So at a certain point, D'Angelo's over off to the side of his house. It looks like a prime spot. And then we just hear over the radio, go.
You can run on for a long time, run on for a long time.
He's been called the East Side Rapist, the Visalia Ransacker, the original Night Stalker.
Run on for a long time.
And the Golden State Killer. Today, it's our pleasure to call him Defendant.
Sooner or later, God will cut you down.
That bombshell arrest, that former police officer.
72-year-old Joseph James D'Angelo.
He's been described as one of the most prolific serial killers
that terrorized California for decades.
Sooner or later, God will cut you down.
The arrest of Joseph D'Angelo dropped like a bomb. All these years, hiding in plain sight.
Oh my God, he's living in Sacramento. He's been living there under everybody's noses for all this time. It was stunning.
It's a moment when you realize that 40 years of work by a lot of folks to bring some answers to some family members was becoming real.
It's just unbelievable. After all these years, they got him.
I feel I reverted right back. That part that I was so successful at tucking away in my brain, that door opened. I was shaking.
It was hard to process. I know after I got the call, the tears welled up. Thousands of nightmares and thousands of sleepless nights have come to a rest.
It was just something that was on my mind for all those years. Want him caught before I die.
We could finally put a face and a name to this masked individual that was terrorizing all these communities back in the 70s and 80s.
Joseph DeAngelo's first arraignment in court,
Please make sure your cell phones are silent,
was a complete madhouse. It was a zoo. In the front rows were family members of victims and victims themselves.
We were all super, super nervous.
I start sobbing, and I couldn't stop.
Joseph James DeAngelo.
And then that moment, Joseph DeAngelo, in a red-orange jumpsuit that says prisoner on the back, rolls in a wheelchair, hunched over, his hands handcuffed.
This is the Golden State Killer? This old man? And he looks so harmless. And I think that is exactly the impression that he wants to create.
Is Joseph James DeAngelo your true and correct legal name? I'm sorry? Yes. You have.
At that moment, you could hear gasps. There was something about his voice that clearly brought back years of pain and fear.
I thought, this has got to be a big act.
In the week prior, he's riding a motorcycle at high speeds. He was walking around just fine.
And within a day of his arrest, he's all of a sudden bound to a wheelchair.
But then the jail surveillance camera tells a very different story.
He's climbing up on the bunks and getting up on the vents and cleaning things.
Doing exercises in the jail cell.
He's a master of disguise. He used that during all of his crimes, and he is continuing to use it, but now in a different way.
Victims are still processing it. And the big question, why? Why did he do all of this?
What really did transpire? Why he became this person, this predator?
I think that's the million-dollar question.
Mr. DeAngelo would like to make a brief statement.
I'd like to get into his mind to talk to him and find out what brought him up to where he was.
There is no recipe for a serial killer. We can see all of these markers or all of these risk factors along the way. We have a physically abusive dad.
And a relative reveals a bombshell in that HBO docuseries All Be Gone in the Dark, detailing how Joseph DeAngelo, at the age of 9 or 10, allegedly witnessed his younger sister being sexually assaulted.
She was 7 years old. The very thing that happened to my mother is the very thing that my uncle went and did to other women. How sickening is that?
It would be so easy for us as forensic psychologists if we could kind of go, a person is abused, and therefore they become this kind of offender.
The vast majority of people don't turn into serial rapists and serial killers. So it's hard to feel the sympathy for these offenders or to say that this event made him do it.
Bonnie certainly is not responsible for DeAngelo's actions, and the breakup did not cause those actions.
Sentencing today for the so-called Golden State Killer.
Former police officer Joseph DeAngelo Jr.
committed rapes and murders all across California.
This is the matter of the people of the state of California versus Joseph James DeAngelo.
This will be the first time that these people have seen him since the nights that they were victimized.
This is a network of people that have come together that never knew each other, but share one thing in common.
On March 18th, 1978, Joe D'Angelo attacked us while we were sleeping. He kidnapped me from my bed. He raped me repeatedly.
I want you to look at me. You bound my wrist and ankles. You blindfolded me. Remember that?
At 3 different times that night, I thought I was going to die.
No 13-year-old should have to find out what a rape kit is. My family couldn't hide the agony in their faces.
What matters is that you will spend the rest of your life in prison, and I survived.
I just want to tell you, buddy, to rot in hell.
You will forever be known as a repulsive coward who hid behind a mask of evil. The devil can keep you company in your prison cell as he gnaws away at whatever soul you have left.
Mr. D'Angelo would like to make a brief statement.
I've listened to all your statements, and I'm truly sorry to everyone I've hurt.
Mr. D'Angelo is sentenced to a total of 11 life without the possibility of parole sentences, plus an additional life sentence, plus an additional 8 years. The survivors have spoken clearly. The defendant deserves no mercy.
In the end, we may have lost a battle one night, but we've won the war of life. We're nearing the end of a very long journey here.
It shows that justice doesn't have a time limit. You can still find answers decades and decades later if you're willing to do the work. Inside Michelle's computer, she had a letter, and it was her writing directly to the...
This is a true murder mystery. Emphasis on murder, emphasis on mystery.
I felt like Lita's murder case looks like a true crime story, but it goes a lot deeper.
Who would kill this woman? She wasn't robbed. Somebody came to the door with roses and shot her dead.
Was there a feeling that this had to be pretty calculated?
She was shot with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. No obvious suspect.
Was she at all concerned about the fact that she was in an interracial marriage and that this was a difficult time in the South?
It was not a welcoming place for a black woman to live.
She said, I'm done. I'm packing up my stuff.
I want you to see the puzzle. When I put it together and I show it to you, you'll never forget it.
Your wife's best friend has been murdered, and police are looking at you.
It's a chilly, drizzly winter Atlanta morning, and 35-year-old Lita McClinton is suddenly awakened.
It's around 8:15 in the morning, and she heard the doorbell ring. And she tightens up her rope and goes downstairs to open the door.
And I think she was probably not going to open it, but she looked through the keyhole and saw that the person had a box of flowers.
There was a man standing at the door holding a long white box of long stem roses that had a big, thick pink ribbon around it.
So she receives the flowers, thinking that this is a delivery.
She was really excited. She thought that it was a gift from one of her friends.
In a sea of red brick townhouses, Lita's white one stands out. Her best friend Poppy and 3-year-old daughter have spent the night, and they are still in bed upstairs, just waking up.
Poppy hears her say, "Good morning," to the man at the door.
The flower delivery man produces a handgun. He fires a shot.
She actually put the box of roses in front of her face. The second shot went right through the center of her head, and she fell with a large thud
Lita's friend Poppy was upstairs with her toddler. And right away, she grabbed her daughter and hid her into a closet and said, "You gotta be quiet, quiet as a mouse." Because she didn't know if the gunman was gonna come for her. Lita's neighbor hears the shots, then sees the guy running like a bat out of hell, just booking it out of the complex, and he calls 911.
The first police officer is only a few blocks away, and he gets the call and has been shot. Lita's mother called her husband. When they went to the hospital, they were put in a separate...
Not murder. So when the shooting happened right here, neighbors were shocked and on edge.
Sullivan was found in the doorway of her townhouse, shot twice in the head.
It's pretty surprising that in this area, those kinds of things probably wouldn't happen.
How did you learn that Lita had been killed?
I ran to the TV because I heard Sullivan on Slayton Drive.
Police say a box of roses was found near her body. The gunman apparently posed as a delivery man.
And I said, "Oh my God, that's Lita."
Detectives on the scene found a bullet fragment, 2 shell casings, and the box of roses.
2 gunshots from a 9mm penetrated the box. The weapon was never found. To this day, it's never been found.
In this case, you had just a minor amount of evidence.
At the time, it was the top story on the news, and law enforcement officers felt a great deal of pressure in order to bring Lita's killer to justice.
For years, Lita's case was cold, buried underneath the weight of unanswered questions and fading memories.
I'm Deb Miller-Landau, and I just wrote a book called A Devil Went Down to Georgia about the murder of Lita McClinton Sullivan. I covered this story for Atlanta Magazine back in 2004, and the more people I talked to, the more that I researched, the more I felt like I began to know Lita. So talking about the day that she died feels personal.
The case was also personal to Clint Rucker, the prosecutor. When I came to Atlanta to meet up with him, I learned that one of his passions is puzzles, working from the outside in, which also translates to solving homicides.
Where do you begin? How do you start to connect?
When I'm putting together a puzzle, not only in real life, but also a murder case, I make an assessment about what it is I'm working with. I start to identify pieces of the puzzle that are foundational.
Lita's murder case looks like a true crime story, but it goes a lot deeper. It's a story about love and loss and greed.
Lita had been reared in Atlanta's Black Elite.
On the surface, she was living an Atlanta dream.
A prosperous upbringing.
A very prosperous upbringing. The expectations for her life were pretty high.
Black women have had to be exceptional in order to be seen. And that was the case then, and I think it's still the case now.
One thing seems certain, a murder of this kind is personal.
Was there a feeling that this had to be pretty calculated?
Police knew almost immediately Lita Sullivan was the intended victim.
Who would kill this woman? She wasn't robbed. Somebody came to the door with roses and shot her dead.
Atlanta had its fair share of crime, but this was most certainly one of the highest profile cases that got reported in the news.
Sullivan was shot twice in the head. A box of roses found next to her body.
Using a flower delivery man and shooting her, it was something that just kind of stuck out to me.
Atlanta, Georgia, billed as a vibrant melting pot, a destination for creatives. But if you grew up in Georgia in the 1970s, as I did, you know this was a very different place then. One still emerging from the dark shadows of segregation and racial tensions.
What was 1970s Atlanta like when she was sort of coming along?
We've got African Americans that are kind of ascending into really prominent positions. Lita also is ascending because her parents are part of this movement.
Lita's parents, Emory and Joanne McClinton, were both power players, movers and shakers in Atlanta.
Emory McClinton was on the State Board of Transportation. Joanne McClinton was a member of the Georgia legislature.
Joanne will tell you stories about being in really interpersonal meetings with Dr. King.
She was the Maynard Jackson's campaign manager when he ran for mayor.
I think the McClintons had high expectations for who Lita would become. Lita Sullivan was a true daughter of Atlanta.
She was just a gem, very, very proper.
And she had grown up in a world of cotillions, so she really was sort of that classic upper crust black person growing up in Atlanta.
She knew where she was going.
She had a great sense of style.
And absolutely charming.
After high school, she went on to Spelman College. Her parents sort of hoped that she would enter the political arena like they were, but she was very much into fashion. She was working at a boutique at Lenox Square, and in walks this guy who had unruly curls and weird glasses and just immediately saw Lita and was taken with her.
Fresh out of college, 24-year-old Lita is smitten with James, Jim Sullivan. He's a bit older, 35, and he's also white.
He showered her with gifts. He just completely showered her with attention.
He comes in, he dazzles her. What did you learn about him?
I learned that what he saw was a fantasy in Lita. I think he looked at her as a young, very attractive, very smart African-American female.
Another big difference between them is class. Lita has been raised in Atlanta's high society and Jim on Boston's gritty South Side.
He grew up in a very middle to lower middle class environment.
He went to Holy Cross College, got a bachelor's degree in economics.
He always wanted more for himself. He always wanted to be a rich person, but it didn't seem like that was in the cards. He was an accountant. He was working hard, but he really wasn't getting ahead.
But life is about to change for Jim Sullivan when he inherits a thriving liquor distributorship from his uncle, worth millions of dollars.
Crown Beverages was worth around $3.2 million. Jim had become a wealthy man. So when the McClintons met Jim for the first time, they were like, who is this guy? He had this kind of manner that was very uncouth and brash, and they were sort of mystified about what their daughter saw in him. I mean, I think the only thing they had in common was that he was Catholic and they were Catholic as well. But everything else was complete polar opposites.
Another concern, of course, was race. Remember, this is the 70s. Even though the country is watching color barriers slipping away on the hit show The Jeffersons, with Primetime's first interracial couple.
Your parents have never gotten over the fact that I'm white.
That's because you never got over being white.
At that time, this was unusual.
Georgia's anti-miscegenation laws that forbade blacks and whites to marry had only been repealed 10 years earlier.
Still, despite their obvious differences, Jim Sullivan pops the question to Lita.
So the McClintons were like, you cannot marry this man.
They felt like Lita was really making a mistake and was kind of caught up in the exuberance of this relationship.
Despite her parents' strong objections, Lita and Jim are engaged. But on the eve of her wedding, Jim drops a bomb.
He tells Lita that he has been married before and that he has 4 children. Lita was shocked.
And then, the very same night, Jim Sullivan blindsides his bride-to-be again.
He whips out a piece of paper and he says, "Can you sign this?" And then she looks down and sees that he's drawn up a prenuptial agreement. And she's like, "What is this?"
Apparently determined to protect his newfound wealth, Sullivan surprises Lita with a prenup, which says that in the event of a divorce, she would walk away with virtually nothing. She's reluctant, but the cake is ordered, the flowers are ready, so Lita signs the agreement and ties the knot anyway.
Lita got married in 1976. It was a small ceremony in Macon, Georgia. Joanne McClinton would later describe that as the worst day of her life.
The newlyweds settle some 80 miles south of Atlanta near Jim's business in Macon. It's a world away from Atlanta. But Lita agrees to give up her current job and her income and become full-time Mrs. Jim Sullivan.
They bought a house in Shirley Hills, a very affluent, very white part of Macon. Joanne and Emery McClinton feared for their daughter. Being part of an interracial couple in Macon, Georgia in the 1970s would have been extraordinarily challenging. The neighbors were like, "You have the gall to bring a black wife to Shirley Hills." People threw garbage on their doorstep.
The out-and-out racism had to be tough for Lita. But she moves forward and makes some new connections and friends, including Yvette Miller.
When Lita and Yvette occasionally go out to eat, she notices something a bit curious.
We'd go out to lunch at a nice restaurant, and she couldn't pay the bill. And I would end up picking up the check.
And they were a wealthy couple.
They were very wealthy.
Then one Christmas season, a card arrives in the mail addressed to Jim. Lita opens it, and what she discovers will make her question everything. Lita and Jim Sullivan's first few months of marriage seemed to be going well.
They were both intelligent, both attractive, definitely upper class, high society.
But just beneath the surface, there's some obvious cracks.
They seemed to be loving at first.
At first?
He was not that nice to her, and he was not that kind to her.
Was he brusque? Was he brash?
He was a bit arrogant. Even though he had all of these resources, he did not, in my opinion, take care of his wife.
Friends say that the once generous millionaire has suddenly become a miser.
He was notoriously cheap.
He would wear his dead uncle's clothes around the house. He would use the sheath from the dry cleaning as saran wrap in the kitchen. He didn't want Lita to work, but he kept her on a very tight allowance where he gave her $150 a week.
Did she express any discontentment with her marriage?
When we were at those restaurants, Jim just does not give me enough money to take care of me and the house. You know, she clearly was not happy.
Was there talk of infidelity?
Lita had several instances where she questioned whether or not her husband was actually having an affair.
One day she finds a long blonde hair in their master bathroom, and she asks Jim about it, and he says, "I don't know what you're talking about." They got into this cycle of, she accused him of philandering. He would deny it, and then he would buy her sort of an expensive jewelry apology.
Then, during the holidays one year, Lita makes another stunning discovery.
A Christmas card came addressed to Jim. She opened it. A woman wrote in something like, "Missing your kisses." The woman's return address was on the envelope, so Lita went and spoke to her. And the woman said that she had been having an affair with Jim.
Lita is distraught and goes home to be with her parents in Atlanta. But her husband manages to lure her back, increasing her weekly allowance in a now post-nuptial agreement.
Now it's $300 instead of $150 a week, but it still shows that all of their assets belong to Jim.
That's right, the successful business, Lita's Mercedes, multiple properties, even her jewelry, still belong to her husband in the event of a divorce.
But in an attempt at reconciliation, Lita signs the postnup.
Just a few months after Lita signs that agreement, without Lita knowing, Sullivan decides to sell Crown Beverages for $5 million.
And that's not all. He tells her they're moving to Palm Beach, Florida.
Lita was in shock.
She had any clue that he was going to whistle her down to Palm Beach.
But Lita's new Florida home, located a stone's throw from what would become Mar-a-Lago, is more elaborate than she ever would have imagined. Called Casa Alita, it's a 17,000 square foot mansion with 8 oceanfront bedrooms.
It was just unbelievable.
When you went to Jim's home, you go through this tunnel and you would be at the beach. It's your own private beach.
But for Lita, everything that glitters isn't exactly gold.
James Sullivan very much wanted to integrate himself into the upper echelons of society, and his aspirations did not include Lita's participation.
It was not a welcoming place for a black woman to live. And when he found out that to sort of scale the level of social plateau he was looking at in Palm Beach, having a black wife was a serious impediment to that.
She was left out of some affairs, and she really became upset.
So even though they had money, this is a moneyed crowd, didn't really matter though.
He was barely rich compared to Palm Beach.
Did he want to be in that crowd?
Oh yes, he wanted to, be accepted as one of the rich and famous.
It doesn't take long before Jim starts to flirt with other women.
And it's at a cocktail party that one particularly elegant Palm Beach woman catches Sullivan's eye.
Jim sees Suki Rogers, who is a Korean-born socialite.
She was telegenic. She had a spicy personality. I think a man like Jim Sullivan could not help but be intrigued by this beautiful woman.
They started dating. He's still married to Lita.
By now, the Sullivans have been married nearly 10 years, but things are about to explode.
Lita finds women's lingerie in their master bed. It's the bra that broke the camel's back.
She said, I'm done. I'm packing up my stuff, and I'm going back home.
Lita arrives back in Atlanta. The very next day, she files for divorce from Jim.
But Sullivan fights Lita every step of the way, and the divorce drags on.
Did she seem concerned, worried, nervous about her breakup?
What I detected was she was excited, and she was cutting the cord and leaving Jim alone. She wanted her life back.
While Lita is looking forward to a new life of freedom, she can't be happy about the prospect of leaving her marriage with virtually nothing. No career, no Palm Beach mansion, no Buckhead townhouse, and $2,500 a month in alimony for 3 years. So Lita is going to divorce court, determined to fight for what she believes she deserves.
All she wanted was a reasonable financial settlement so that she could kind of go on with her life.
January 16th, 1987 was set up to be a pivotal day in the lives of Lita and Jim Sullivan.
A judge was going to decide whether or not to throw out the postnuptial agreement.
She might get as much as close to $1 million in cash and assets.
The morning of January 16th, Lita Sullivan, she'd lose her life that day in a murder.
With Lita out of the picture, Jim Sullivan stands to gain the property that they had and retain control over all his money.
Sullivan was the main suspect.
That is, until a treasure trove of secret recordings of Lita's private conversations are uncovered, taking this investigation in a whole new direction.
And police are looking at you.
You know, you make a big circle and you put everybody in it that's close to Lita. Everybody's a suspect. But the first one would be the husband.
The first and obvious suspect was James Sullivan, who stood to gain everything from her death, all the property, all the monies, and who was contesting the divorce.
Detectives went down to speak to him in Palm Beach, and they put him through a polygraph.
Jim Sullivan not only passes the polygraph, but there's something else. He has an alibi that puts him nearly 700 miles away from the crime scene.
James Sullivan was actually in Palm Beach at the time of Lita's murder.
When you first look at it, it looks pretty cut and dry. When you interview all the people involved, everybody points in one direction, towards the husband. But when you sit down and look at the facts, I'm not so sure that the husband is the person that committed the crime.
Nothing surfaced in the early stages of the investigation that implicated Jim Sullivan in the murder.
Sullivan is cooperating with authorities, and during his interview with detectives, he mentions the name of his friend, Marvin Marable.
At the time of Lita's death, Marvin and James Sullivan had a very close relationship.
Remember, Marvin Marable is married to Lita's best friend, Poppy, who was in the Buckhead townhouse with her 3-year-old daughter the morning that Lita was murdered. But back before the shooting, the friendship hadn't always sat well with Marvin.
When Lita moved back to Atlanta, they started, hanging out together.
So she's disillusioned by her relationship. Did her failed relationship have any impact on your relationship?
Well, from the standpoint of them, being together all the time and going out, yeah.
Commiserating.
Oh, absolutely. Certainly didn't help. And I can understand her being there for her friend, but, sometimes you can go overboard, which is what happened in our relationship.
Marable, a former New York State trooper turned entrepreneur, says Lita would often spend hours at his home with Poppy. And it was during this time, he says, coincidentally or not, that his own marriage began to unravel.
I found a letter where Poppy was planning to file for divorce.
So she was planning to file for divorce without your knowledge?
Oh, yeah.
That had to be a shocker.
It was.
So then you decided to try something a little questionable after that.
I have a background in law enforcement. I don't see it as questionable. It's your own telephone in your own house. I put a recorder on the, people call it a tap, on the phone, and I started recording conversations.
In the house phone?
Mm-hmm. On the house phone.
He began listening to Poppy and Lita's conversations and ended up recording more than 300 hours.
And during those very personal conversations between girlfriends, Marvin Marable learns that there may be some information that James Sullivan might be interested in learning that will be helpful for him in his divorce case.
He tells Sullivan about the tapes and what's on them, specifically Lita's post-divorce plans.
And soon enough, the two disgruntled husbands are conspiring to get the best of their soon-to-be ex-wives in divorce court.
Marvin Marable travels down to Palm Beach under a false name, and the two men listen to the tapes, and Marvin says, "I'm not going to record anymore," and Jim says, no, keep recording.
Was there talk of money?
Yeah, he offered $30,000.
Jim says to Marvin, if the judge decides to honor the postnuptial agreement, He's going to give Marvin $30,000 for the use of the information on the tapes.
What kinds of things did Lita talk about that could be helpful to either one of you?
You know, there were some guys that, she would talk to, but she was legally separated.
But then, just a few days after Marvin and Jim's secret meeting at Casa Elita,
Poppy and Lita somehow discovered the recording device.
How did they react?
It wasn't nice. She filed for divorce the next day.
She was angry.
She was very angry.
Lita was upset too, so upset that she reported Marvin to the authorities, and he was charged with possession of an eavesdropping device. So when police questioned Sullivan about who might have a motive to murder his wife, he tells them to look no further than Marvin Marable.
And sure enough, only a few days after Lita's death, Marvin is being questioned by the Atlanta Police Department about Lita's murder.
I go down for the interview, and the first thing they did is read me my rights. And from there on, it was just a nightmare. I was a prime suspect.
You have a law enforcement background, so you knew what police were.
So I knew that I was being followed. I could pick the investigators, police, could pick them out all the time. Jim had mentioned my name to them. He said, look at Marvin Marable.
This was serious stuff.
Oh, yeah.
How worried were you?
I was very worried.
Joanne and Emery McClinton were beyond devastated. Their eldest daughter was dead. Just 3 days after Lita's murder, they held a funeral.
Days dissolve into months, and authorities are no closer to finding Lita Sullivan's murderer.
The case is just sort of growing colder and colder by the minute.
And while Marvin Marable might have been angry at Lita for pressing those charges against him for eavesdropping, there was no evidence he was responsible for her death.
I know that people get wrongly accused, wrongly convicted, and so the only saving grace is the fact that I knew I was innocent.
By process of elimination is you can determine the pieces that don't fit.
And just eliminate them.
The way in which we eliminated Marvin Marable as a suspect. There was just not enough to connect him directly to the crime itself.
As for that eavesdropping device charge, Marvin was put on probation, which he completed, and then he was exonerated. But on those recordings Marable made, Lita had talked about other men, something that her soon-to-be ex-husband Sullivan pointed out to police.
He made allegations that she was participating in extramarital affairs, and that perhaps this was the action of, a disgruntled boyfriend.
We have a lot of major players. At this point in the investigation, we have a lot of suspects.
One of the first men police question is a professional athlete.
Lita and him had been friends when she was in Palm Beach. The police quickly found out that he was in prison for drug possession.
That athlete is behind bars when Lita is killed, so clearly he can't be the trigger man. Then investigators turn their sights to a prominent Atlanta businessman.
And he and Lita had been childhood friends, and they sort of rekindled their friendship. And they realized that he had no motive, and they found nothing that connected him.
Authorities also take a hard look at another suitor who had taken Lita to dinner the night before her death, and get this, had also given her 2 roses.
The suspect was a man named Bob Daniel, and Bob had had an incident a couple months before the murder where, in a drunken rage, he came to Lita's house, smashed his car into the garage, and as the cops were taking him away, he said, "I'm gonna kill that." So, serious red flag.
But that lead didn't go anywhere either.
Bob had just had quadruple bypass surgery. The police ultimately decided that Bob had nothing to do with it.
It's the unknowing that makes it so difficult. and to know that there are individuals who may be walking around now planning and plotting to do the same thing to somebody else is abhorrent to me.
I remember having the impression it was like a festering wound for them.
The McClintons want to draw attention to a $25,000 reward in the case.
The cause of finding justice for Lita became their obsession, became their passion.
The reward is for the arrest and conviction of those individuals responsible for our daughter's murder.
To catch Lita's killer, the Atlanta Police Department assigns 2 veteran detectives to the case.
If Lieutenant Walker bears a resemblance to actor Billy D. Williams, Welcome Harris reminds one of Columbo, the dogged, disheveled detective of television fame.
Building a murder case was like making a mosaic. You know, you get a shiny piece of glass here, a gem there. You put it together and you hope that from it emerges the shimmering image of a killer.
This particular case deals with what I consider to be high society. It contains a little bit of everything. Intrigue, mystery.
These days, a lot of murders are solved using DNA technology, ring camera technology. But back then, it was detective work.
She was shot with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun.
Most important thing found at the crime scene was the roses.
They canvassed all the area flower shops and quickly found that the roses had been purchased at the Botany Bay flower shop.
They interviewed the worker in there, and he told them that this guy came in about 8 o'clock and bought these roses and paid in cash and then left. And he was in a small car.
The florist gave a description of the man buying the flowers and another man who was waiting in the car.
So detectives know they're looking for at least 2 men.
Until yet another person is described to police, that flower delivery man who had looked Lita's neighbor right in the eye.
There was a next-door neighbor of Lita's, lived over on the right side of her condo. He lived there. His name was Bob Christensen.
He actually gave a description of the flower delivery man as a Caucasian, middle-aged man.
They went down to the police station and worked with a police artist and got sketches. As the sketches were being completed, the officers were realizing, obviously, that the shooter was not Jim Sullivan and that the other individuals were all 3 distinct individuals. They didn't look anything like each other, so therefore we knew 3 people were involved.
For investigators, this has all the earmarks of only one thing: murder for hire.
All the evidence pointed to a hitman showing up at the front door, posing as a flower delivery man, and firing a gunshot into Lita's head.
With investigators now exploring the possibility that Lita was murdered by a hired gunman, another critical piece of evidence comes to light: a mysterious phone call.
And what they found was that on the same day that Lita was murdered, about an hour after the actual shooting, there was a collect phone call that was placed from a payphone right outside of Atlanta, Georgia.
Was this a call from the killer?
I don't know about you, I haven't had a collect call from a payphone, so as a cop you probably go, I wonder if that's connected.
And a tip from a woman 700 miles away may just be the big break investigators have been waiting for.
I said, anyone knows that if you wanted to get a woman to answer the door, all you would have to do is take flowers to the door.
This was a huge puzzle of a case.
A hitman showing up at the front door, posing as a flower delivery man, firing a gunshot into Lita's head.
How did your puzzle-solving skills come into play?
You figure out what fits and what doesn't fit.
I want everyone listening to this to know that I am absolutely innocent.
The loss of a daughter
They still don't have a murder weapon.
But they do have witnesses.
Do you know anybody that can possibly take care of my problem for me? Because I need some help here.
Anyone knows that if you wanted to get a woman to answer the door, all you would have to do is take flowers to the door.
She suggested the flowers.
She suggested the flowers.
You actually brought in a doorbell. Why?
To have that sense of what Lita Sullivan experienced right before her murder. She's about to meet her maker.
It's a deadly delivery of a dozen pink roses. 35-year-old Lita McClinton Sullivan opens her front door and is suddenly gunned down.
On the year anniversary of Lita's death, there are no named suspects. They still don't have a murder weapon. They don't have a hitman. They don't have a paper trail that ties Jim or anyone else to a hit.
But that's about to change when they get Jim Sullivan's phone records.
On the same day that Lita was murdered, about an hour or so after the actual shooting, there was a collect phone call to James Sullivan's home in Palm Beach, Florida.
It turns out to be from a rest stop in Suwanee, Georgia, maybe 30 or 40 miles from Buckhead. Using a phone call to call another state, that opens up federal jurisdiction. In this case, that's the FBI.
We believed the phone call from Suwanee rest stop to his home in Palm Beach, Florida, was sufficient indication that a contract hitter may have called him after doing the job.
Enter Special Agent John Kingston, who takes a particular interest in that phone call and a whole slew of other calls Jim Sullivan made and received around the time of Lita's murder.
I got a whole year's worth, 6 months before the murder to 6 months after the murder.
Kingston notices a few calls, and one of them was to Bob Christensen, Lita's neighbor. When Kingston talks to Bob, he finds out that Jim had called Bob 3 days before the murder.
Sullivan said, had he seen anything suspicious around Lita's townhouse?
And Bob finds it strange. He hasn't talked to Jim in over a year.
Bob Christensen shares something else with Agent Kingston. On the same day Jim Sullivan called him, 3 days before the fatal flower delivery, Lita heard a loud knock on her door at 5 or 6 in the morning. It was so early and so unnerving, she didn't answer it.
So that made the call that he got from Jim even more suspicious.
Kingston also finds that a call is made between Jim's house and a Howard Johnson's motel in Atlanta, just a couple of miles from Lita's house. This is really strange. One thing that he's learned about Jim is that he's not a Hojo's kind of guy. So he goes to the Howard Johnsons and asks if he can look through the records.
They gave me the shoebox with all the registration cards, and I pick out 3 that I thought, well, these are awfully interesting. So I said, do you guys have the phone records? They said, yeah, sure we do. And I'm thinking, boy, these people keep really good records, and they keep them for a long time, and I'm really glad. They bring me the phone records for January 13th. I'm flipping through them, and all of a sudden I see 305 Palm Beach, South Florida area code. And I'm pretty sure it's Jim's number. And so I check my records real quick, and I go, yep, that's his number. And then I look, and I said, oh, look, it's from 518. That's one of the 3 cards I pulled out. Well, it just so happens I have a copy of it here. And one of the things it imparts is 3 individuals checked into the room. The individual who actually registered used the name Johnny Furr, but 3 individuals is important to me because I think 3 people involved in the crime. They put their car down as a Toyota 85 with a North Carolina plate. We believe that a Toyota was the getaway car for the murder. So there's 2 coincidences already.
But remember, these motel records are from January 13th. Lita was murdered 3 days later on the 16th. Special Agent Kingston is beginning to surmise that the killers may have tried and failed to get to her once before.
What I believe it to be is the killers having come down 3 days before the actual murder was committed, knocking on her door, her not answering it, and them having to stop and regroup and figure out what plan B is going to be. So I am in love with this registration card and becomes the focal point of my life for the next several months.
Kingston's next move is to locate this so-called Johnny Fur with the North Carolina license plate.
And to my surprise, there are 150 John or Johnny Furs in North Carolina. But to my great surprise, 115 of these 150 are in a very small circle in North Carolina, between the 3 cities of Albemarle, Concord, and Kannapolis.
They're going to knock on every door and find this Johnny Fur. Of course, they're coming from Georgia, and anytime the FBI goes and investigates in another state, they need that state's approval. And just as they're about to get to the state border, their boss calls them and says, North Carolina's denying you entry, and they'll take it from here.
And that pretty much kills my case. that kills my case.
Yeah, soon after that, Agent Kingston is transferred to another job, and that whole investigation just sort of fades away. Meantime, in Palm Beach, Jim and Suki are living the high life. So with Lita out of the picture, Jim is free to marry Suki, which he does 8 months after Lita's murder.
He's thinking that he's the cat's meow. Eating in restaurants in Palm Beach, going to parties, got another attractive woman on his arm.
Jim drives around town in a Rolls Royce and gets into a fender bender and has to go to traffic court. Jim says to the judge, well, you've misunderstood. I wasn't even driving that day. Suki was driving. So the judge says, we're going to throw it out. However, the cop who was on the scene catches wind and he says Suki wasn't even in the car that day. It was Jim driving alone. So now Jim has perjured himself, as has Suki.
Jim ultimately got convicted of perjury, was given a year probation and a year of home confinement.
Suki Sullivan also receives a year of probation.
Suki's freaking out. When she gets charged with perjury on his behalf, she's like, I'm done with this. Suki files for divorce from Jim. And the trial that follows is the juiciest, craziest gossip in town. So when it's Suki's turn to testify, she drops a bomb.
Did he talk to you about his former wife, Lita?
Yes.
Tell me what it was he said to you about Lita.
You can hear a pin drop. It's a big moment. After 33 months of marriage, Suki files for divorce from Jim.
Not surprisingly, it's another disputed divorce. But what might have been typical testimony about alimony takes a sudden turn in court.
Tell me what it was he said to you about Lita.
He hired someone to murder her.
I'm sorry?
He hired someone to murder her.
She claimed that he confessed to her that he had Lita killed.
This became a bombshell in the investigation of the murder of Lita Sullivan.
Suki Sullivan's divorce testimony may be big news for the FBI, but it has zero impact on the divorce judgment, which favors her husband, Jim Sullivan, in nearly every way.
His divorce was complete, but his life with turmoil was just beginning.
The opulent ocean-facing Palm Beach Palace may look like something out of The Great Gatsby, but while we watched, a new chapter in a crime story was unfolding.
We develop information here at WSB. There's going to be a raid on Jim Sullivan's Palm Beach mansion, and that is the biggest break in the Lita Sullivan case since the murder itself.
Investigators from the FBI, Atlanta Police, and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation were on the grounds of a mansion identified as that of James Sullivan.
All of a sudden, Jim Sullivan is clearly in the crosshairs of federal authorities.
They got a tip that Jim, now a convicted felon, has guns in the house. Of course, you're not allowed to have guns if you're a convicted felon. So they put together a sweeping affidavit to get a search warrant.
We did see a number of guns loaded into a car and this box carried out.
When they found the guns, he was in violation of his probation, and so he went to jail for 9 months.
All this time, a federal grand jury has been convening in Atlanta.
They've got what they found in the mansion. They got what they found in the phone records. They've got Suki Sullivan. They've got the neighbors. What they don't have are the identities of the hit team. There's a problem, though.
We, the federal government, have a 5-year statute of limitations, which is going to be up on January 16th of '92.
With 5 or 6 days to go before it expired, the U.S. attorney made a bold decision. We're going to take our best shot with what we got right now, so they indict Jim Sullivan.
Jim Sullivan is indicted on multiple counts of arranging Lita's murder for hire through interstate phone calls.
Millionaire James V. Sullivan is on trial in connection with an alleged murder for hire plot. Here he arrives for the first day of trial testimony.
It was a trial that transfixed Atlanta. I mean, it was something we were covering on basically a daily basis. But we couldn't have it on camera because it's federal court.
It looks like the family is finally going to have some accountability for the murder of their daughter, Lita.
The prosecution suggests the killers were calling Sullivan from the rest stop to say the job was done. The defense suggests otherwise.
Jim Sullivan is lawyered up with the best criminal defense lawyers that you can find anywhere in Atlanta and maybe in the whole country.
There is no evidence at this point in this case who placed that call or whether that call was placed by anyone connected with the crime.
The prosecutor spent 2 weeks telling their side of the story.
Suki, the woman he married months after Lita's death, delivered some of the most dramatic testimony the jury has heard.
They build what they feel like is a really strong case.
And then a big bombshell hits.
The judge says, I'm forced to dismiss this case for lack of evidence.
Judge Marvin Shube ruled that, in effect, even if Sullivan may have been involved in the murder for hire, the government fell short in proving the phone calls related to the murder.
This is one of the most difficult decisions I had to make because I firmly believe in the jury system.
And then he looks at Jim and he says, you've been acquitted.
Is over.
The family at that point, I guess, is just sort of at a loss. How devastating was that for them?
They felt like the justice system had let them down.
I was not expecting this. It's extremely difficult.
The system today is weighed in the favor of the defense.
James Sullivan seems to have gotten away with murder.
But Lita's parents aren't giving up.
They file a wrongful death suit in Palm Beach, Florida, and they win.
We, the jury, return the following verdict.
The jury deems that Jim is guilty of wrongful death.
Total damages of the estate of Lita McClinton Sullivan, $4 million.
But Sullivan is able to hide his assets and not pay any of the civil judgment.
Jim Sullivan appealed their civil judgment, and he won by having the Florida court say that they had filed it after the Florida statute of limitations.
Once again, Jim has wiggled out of any responsibility, and the family is left dumbfounded.
Until
a call is received out of the blue.
A young woman comes forward. It proved to be the break in the case that everyone was looking for.
11 years have gone by since Lita Sullivan was gunned down on her doorstep when a tip comes in from a town 700 miles away.
A call is received out of the blue, and the individual calling is an attorney in Beaumont, Texas. He has a receptionist whose name is Belinda Trahan, who has told him a very unusual story about her boyfriend, Tony Harwood.
Belinda and Tony lived together in Albemarle, North Carolina. And he was a long-distance truck driver for North American Van Lines.
He basically drove a moving truck.
Belinda tells her boss about a time that Tony came home from a long-haul trucking trip and said that a rich white man in Florida offered to pay him to, quote, take care of his black wife in Georgia. At the time, Belinda didn't believe it. She thought he must be cheating on her.
Belinda thought that it was Tony just trying to get out of town and go down to Atlanta to the strip bars.
Until he took her to meet this rich white guy in a diner somewhere, and he got a wad full of money.
She says he sits down briefly in their booth and gives Tony Harwood the balance owed for the hit on the man's wife.
Belinda Trahan tells her boss that soon after this bizarre trip, she broke up with Tony Harwood and moved to Texas. But now, 11 years later, she says that he mysteriously reached out to her again, asking her to meet him at a nearby truck stop.
She's afraid that he may commit harm to her.
And it's this new tip from Belinda Trahan that sends Georgia authorities to the Lone Star State, turning up the heat on an otherwise cold case.
Georgia Bureau of Investigator Agent John Lang takes a detective from the Atlanta Police Department and goes down to Texas to talk to Belinda.
She was with Tony when they met this mysterious man at this diner that they were meeting at. We wanted to show her a lineup of pictures in hopes that she could pick Sullivan out of it.
And she takes her pink fingernail and taps right on Jim Sullivan's face and says, "This is the man."
My plan of attack was to get some recordings with her and Tony. So we got her to get in touch with Tony again.
She's talking to him and trying to coax information out of him, knowing John Lang is listening on her end. And Tony gives enough information that places him at the scene at the time.
We had the phone calls with Tony. She picked Jim Sullivan out of the lineup, but there was still more investigation to do. We really didn't know who Tony Harwood was.
John Lang knows that Tony worked at North American Van Lines. So he calls up North American Van Lines and he says, "Hey, you don't happen to have your records from 11 years ago?" And the guy says, "Yeah, there's some boxes full of files up in a musty attic. You're more than welcome to go poke around."
We went up into a hot attic and opened the first box that I went through. And about the third document I looked at was Jim Sullivan. His address was on it, Palm Beach, Florida. His signature was on it, and Tony Harwood's signature was on it.
He finds a bill of lading showing that Tony Harwood moved furniture for Jim Sullivan 2 months before the murder. And it's the paper trail he needs. It's like the jackpot.
Astounding. I don't know any other way to explain it. I mean, open this box and like the third record I look at, here it is. I mean, it just like it was meant to be.
On a Sunday morning in April of 1998, John Lang and local authorities go knock on Tony's door in Albemarle, North Carolina. Tony answers the door.
And he said, "You know, I've been waiting on you boys for a long time."
They take Tony to the Albemarle police station. Lang interviews Tony for 3 hours in this tiny room. But at the end of the day, Tony admits to taking money from Jim, $25,000, to take care of Lita. He also tells the detectives that he wasn't the one to pull the trigger, but that he was there the day of the murder.
He went through the whole case. And throughout the interview, he incriminated himself even more. I mean, admitted that he was there. He knew what happened. So he was arrested for murder of Lita Sullivan. And we took him back to Atlanta that day.
After Tony's arrest, things moved pretty quickly.
We are here today to announce the issuance of a warrant for the arrest of James V. Sullivan.
They got enough to get Sullivan. And now, boom, Sullivan hears of this and blows. He takes off.
We have reason to believe that he's outside the country.
He's just gone, vanished.
Investigators say he could be anywhere.
He is nowhere to be found.
We certainly do not know where Mr. Sullivan is. We have reason to believe that he's outside the country.
More than a decade after his wife Lita was murdered, Jim Sullivan seems to be playing a game of catch me if you can with authorities.
There is an international manhunt for James Sullivan.
Well, Jim moved to Costa Rica, actually bought a home there. In 1998, after an arrest warrant was issued for him, he immediately, like that night, went to Panama.
If you have any information concerning James Sullivan, you should contact the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate.
We didn't know exactly where he had flown from Panama, and we didn't know exactly where he had gone.
His trail goes cold.
They put him on Interpol, and it was just cold.
They've tapped phone lines, anybody that he might have called, and he's called no one, not even his mother.
There was a few tips that came in. The tips are just dead ends.
The McClintons, they're dumbfounded that this guy could, get away again.
But in late 1999, with Sullivan still completely off the grid, the heartbroken Emery and Joanne McClinton do get some good news.
Last week came this, a court decision reinstating a $4 million judgment against Jim Sullivan in connection with a wrongful death case brought in effect by Lita's estate.
Lita's family and law enforcement officials hope that a renewed hunt for Sullivan's money will help smoke him out.
Where you find Sullivan's money, you're going to find him close by.
But even this goes nowhere.
Fast forward to 2002. There is no sign of Jim Sullivan.
We tried every effort in our arsenal to try and locate him, to put him on the FBI's wanted list, but to also put him on the top 10 list, which is very unusual. You don't get on the top 10 list very easily. Then we also featured him on America's Most Wanted.
The most recent picture we have of Sullivan is at least 5 years old, so the FBI age-enhanced this photo, which may bear a closer resemblance to Sullivan's appearance today. If you recognize James Sullivan from either of these photographs, call us now at 1-800-CRIME-TV.
A man sees America's Most Wanted on television and goes, I know that guy. He lives in my condo complex in Chiam, Thailand. And sure enough, he calls the authorities.
He went to Panama, to Venezuela, and eventually to Thailand, where he got a beachfront condo.
He spends his days walking on the beach, sitting by the pool, occasionally playing tennis, as though no other troubles in the world. The Thai police knock on Jim Sullivan's door on July 2nd, 2002, and say, you're under arrest. The McClintons can hardly believe.
Individuals behind us.
Almost as soon as Jim Sullivan is arrested for murder, Tony Harwood, who has continued to deny being the trigger man, agrees to a plea deal.
Tony kind of sees the writing on the wall.
Harwood just decided that he would plead guilty, the negotiated plea for manslaughter, and that, in turn, that he would testify against Jim Sullivan.
It took 2 years, but he finally was extradited back to Atlanta in 2004.
He got off the plane. He was wearing a single shoe because he had such terrible gout in his foot. But he gets off and gets taken to Fulton County Jail. And there's this sort of cumulative sigh of relief.
To be clear, Sullivan being tried for murder in Georgia is not double jeopardy. For one thing, it is a state case, and the previous one was a federal case, and that specifically was for arranging Lita's murder for hire over the phone.
The elected district attorney appoints me, along with a couple of other lawyers, to prosecute the case.
This was a huge puzzle of a case.
Right.
How did your puzzle-solving skills come into play?
There's no cutting corners, and you spread the pieces out, and then you figure out what fits and what doesn't fit. And that's kind of what the prosecution of James Sullivan was like. It was putting together all these different pieces so that we could make sure that the prosecution of the case was done accurately and with integrity.
What concerned you going into this trial?
He was rich. He was a white male. He had escaped the federal authorities before, and he had two of the best criminal defense attorneys representing him.
They are sharp, and if they can find a way out, they're going to find a way out.
There will not be one shred of physical evidence that links Jim Sullivan to this crime.
Jim has eluded justice so many times that there's a real palpable fear that he's going to get away with it, that he's going to elude justice again.
After nearly 20 years, Jim Sullivan is finally on trial here in Fulton County for the murder of his wife, Lita. For her heartbroken parents, this day couldn't come soon enough.
The pain, believe it or not, it increases. It does not decrease. The shock decreases. The depression decreases. But the pain continues.
It was an A-team of prosecutors, great courtroom performers.
Clint Rucker was the lead prosecutor, and Anna Grain, Kelly Hill, Sheila Ross.
And the evidence will show that the person who sent that hitman to Lita's door is the only person in the world who could have profited from her death. It is the only person in the world who met Tony Harwood and paid him off for killing her, and is the only person in the world who fled halfway around the world to avoid facing you.
Jury was 9 women and 3 men.
The jury is also racially mixed.
Jim Sullivan had Ed Garland and Don Samuel, again, the people who won that big courtroom victory against the feds.
What the state relies on is 2 types of evidence. Circumstantial evidence, and then the testimony of con men.
The state initially started out the nature of the crime and what happened that morning.
I heard 2 sounds. They sounded to me like steel hitting steel.
I just didn't want to believe that it was a gun. And so I hesitated for a second, and then I really knew that it was a gun.
She was able to squeeze my hand each time I spoke with her, like she understood what I was saying. And for many, many years after this, I thought that's all it was. And then one day I realized that she was comforting me more than I was comforting her. That was the sort of lady I felt she was.
They had the phone calls that the FBI had found.
There was a call from this room to Mr. Sullivan's home at 7:44 in the morning.
But all this testimony notwithstanding, it's Belinda Trahan and Tony Harwood who everybody wants to hear from.
Belinda Trahan was the most important witness in the case.
He told me that some white guy who wanted to take out his black wife. I didn't believe it.
Why not?
I've been with him for 3 years, over 3 years. I mean, I figured he met someone because we were on the outs.
Most chilling about Belinda's testimony is that she confirms that there was at least one failed attempt on Lita's life.
She testifies that when Tony had gone to Lita's house on January 13th, that she didn't come to the door. They drove back to North Carolina and told Belinda that, it didn't work.
But Belinda testifies that hearing that from her boyfriend left her incredulous.
I said, just don't even lie to me. I said, because anyone knows that if you wanted to get a woman to answer the door, all you would have to do is take flowers to the door.
Did you in any way mean for that to be a suggestion as to how to get the job accomplished?
No, not at all.
Here's Belinda Trahan, and she is falling on the sword about what she did.
She suggested the flowers.
She suggested the flowers, and she admitted that on the stand.
You brought in the diner booth where they sat. Why couldn't you just tell the jury and show pictures?
I want you to see the puzzle once it's all put together. Yeah, I can show you the box. I can show you a photograph of it. But when I put it together and I show it to you, you'll never forget it.
Pushed the paper across the table like this, and then Tony put his hand on it and took it from there.
And there was a particular moment when she is asked to stand up in court and identify the person she witnessed give Tony Harwood an envelope full of money.
Please, point him out.
It's right there. He can't even make eye contact.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant, James Sullivan.
But if prosecutors feel like Belinda Trahan's testimony is helping their case, they have to know that it's just as big a risk to put Tony Harwood on the stand.
Can you show the jurors the body language Mr. Sullivan used and the tone of voice, if it's possible, that he used when he was explaining to you that his wife Lita was a problem?
You know, I've got this wife of mine up in Atlanta, and she is just trying to take everything I've got. And I don't know what to do about it. I need someone to take care of my problem. Do you know anybody that can possibly take care of my problem for me? Because I need some help here.
We could prove Tony Harwood and James Sullivan actually met each other. So I spent the first part of Tony Harwood's examination confirming his signature on the hotel receipt.
And the signature, Johnny Fur.
The fact that he actually went to the flower shop.
Who actually went inside the flower shop to purchase the flowers?
I did.
They had Tony Harwood saying that he was the one who made the collect call to Jim Sullivan's house.
What did you say to him?
I said, Merry Christmas. And he said, I understand. And that was it.
What were you trying to convey to Mr. Sullivan by giving him that signal, those code words?
That his problem was taken care of.
The defense had their chance to cross-examine Harwood. Not a single question. The two key witnesses were, of course, Belinda Trahan and Tony Harwood. And so, in closing arguments, the defense assailed their credibility.
You should reject everything that came out of his mouth. Harwood says envelope in the bathroom. She says an envelope at this booth over here.
Garland presents to the jury a letter-sized envelope stuffed with bills. Harwood had said it was all cash in $20 bills.
See, oops, some of it fell out. There's some more. It won't fit in an envelope. The whole story just doesn't make sense.
In your closing arguments, you actually brought in a doorbell. Why? What was the point?
I wanted the jurors to have that sense of what Lita Sullivan experienced right before her murder.
An ordinary moment.
In an ordinary moment. The second The reason why I did it is because James Sullivan liked to read books. And one of his favorite authors wrote a book called For Whom the Bell Tolls.
I am going to ask you through your verdict of guilty to each and every count to tell James Vincent Sullivan for whom the bell tolls. Tell him that it tolls for thee. For you. For you.
And then I rang the doorbell 3 times.
As the jury goes out to deliberate, I think there's a real fear. Are they going to do it this time, or is it going to be like every other time?
I do not see this as a slam dunk for the state.
There's this anxiety. You're worried, but you're hopeful. I don't care who you talk to that does this kind of work as a litigator. They will tell you, oh, I can look at the jurors and I probably can tell you what they're going to do. No, you don't. You don't.
This is breaking news.
We do have breaking news at this hour. The jury having reached a verdict in the trial of Jim Sullivan.
The jury came back within a few hours on the same day.
It was so silent, and the tension was just palpable.
There's this anxiety. You don't know what it's going to be. You don't know how it's going to turn out. And you're worried, but you're hopeful.
It's hard not to think of Lita's family, her parents especially, after so many fits and starts to win justice for their firstborn child. It comes down to this moment.
The judge says,
"Ma'am, would you publish the verdict?"
And then from that moment until they get finished, nobody is breathing.
Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, James Vincent Sullivan, guilty of malice murder.
I got a chance to hug Emory McClinton. I had never been hugged so tight before. This was his baby. And we had finally, after 19 years, brought that man a sense of satisfaction. I'll never forget it. The conviction of James Sullivan was the biggest puzzle that I had solved in my career. And it is one that gave me the most satisfaction that I had ever experienced as a prosecutor.
The court hears victim impact statements. What a loss it was to have Lita gone from their lives.
I dream of Lita often. She is smiling and walking in my direction, and I in hers. But we never reach each other.
The jury came back and gave him life in prison without the possibility of parole.
I am so very pleased, and I'm happy. What we were waiting for was something in our judicial system, something to happen and to bring it all together, and that's what you see today.
Why did it take 20 years, do you think?
It goes back to the resources.
He had privilege?
White privilege, completely. He knew how to manipulate people, and he had the resources to do that.
You've got a black